Chapter 570. However, Zhang Xiaohua stood at the entrance of the cave for a long time and looked at the sea of clouds. She couldn't think of a single word, so she could only laugh at herself. It seems that I have to learn more from young Masterly Ji Feng when I have time. His ability to speak eloquently is still very interesting. Sigh, there's no other way. Nameless swordsmanship it is then. Who asked your master to not write the name of the swordsmanship? Oh, that's wrong. This swordsmanship is already different from the swordsmanship manual. There's no human form, only chasing dream weaves endless killing intent in the air. Oh right, this swordsmanship is strange. The small sword moves in the air and often stabs out from unbelievable angles. Even that mysterious old man back then couldn't figure out where this swordsmanship goes. Oh right, why don't we call it weaving dreams? It's like weaving endless nightmares. Since only I know it, I'll just call it that. This weaving dreams swordsmanship was a flying sword technique that a martial arts master of some generation had obtained from the Immortal Tao. It was much stronger than the few incomplete moves of Elder Yu's swordsmanship. Although Zhang Xiaohua couldn't execute it smoothly, the simulation in her mind was like a silkworm spitting out silk. The entire flying sword surrounded the opponent so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Even if she had to face that mysterious old man with the bronze mask in the underground hall again, Zhang Xiaohua was confident that he wouldn't be able to catch the chasing dream sword again. It was already late, and Zhang Xiaohua didn't plan to practice the swordsmanship anymore. This thing needed to be fists and mouth to be practiced. Practice makes perfect, so she wasn't in a hurry. She spent the entire afternoon in the cave, but Bai Huan didn't come to disturb her. Zhang Xiaohua needed to go out to meet her. Sure enough, when Zhang Xiaohua walked to the ridge of the field, Bai Huan ran over from the medicinal field and asked with concern, "Junior brother Ren, why didn't I see you for the entire afternoon? Are you unwell?" Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. Bai Huan must have been scratching his ears and cheeks all afternoon, wanting to see if she was in the cave. So she smiled and said, "Senior brother Bai, don't worry. I am lazy and like to be alone. It doesn't matter if I stay here for a day or half a day. You see, there is not much work on the top of the mountain. We can finish it easily. You can also do more things you like, right?" Bai Huan thought to herself. Of course. Who doesn't know this? But the problem is that other than working, I have to keep an eye on you. If you just stay in the cave, it's also suitable. I don't need to follow you around. So Bai Huan smiled and said, "Junior brother Rin is right. You can stay in the cave. I know that you martial artists like to be quiet. If you can cultivate your internal strength, I will definitely not disturb you. There is not much work on the top of the mountain. If you want to come, come. If you don't want to come, just practice your martial arts." Then she whispered, "However, Junior brother Ren, we are fated. When you first came to Tianmu Peak, I was the one who received you. Now we are working together. The next time you fight, you must tell me the order of your appearance. It's best if you tell me which King Kong you are most confident in defeating, Zhang Xiaohua laughed secretly. I see. Looks like this guy. Oh no, I guess all the disciples of the grass sect have this kind of plan. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua whispered into his ear. Martial arts should not be spread to outsiders. Senior brother Bai, let me tell you something. Out of the 10 King Kong, only the first 3 are not very confident. The rest are not a problem. The next time you fight, you can bet without worry. Oh, right. Remember, when you bet my share as well. If you win, I will bet my share. As soon as she said this, Bai Huan beamed and waved her hand, saying, Junior brother Ren, what are you talking about? How can I let it go like this? In the future, whatever I win will be yours. You don't have to give me any elixirs. Just divide it equally. If you lose, it will be mine too. Seeing Bai Huan gritting her teeth at the end, Zhang Xiaohua laughed secretly and said, Forget it. It should still be some time before the next fight. When Headmaster Chen comes to find me, we can talk about this again. I will give you the elixirs to bet then. Then she said, Senior brother Bai, this medicine field needs to be watered. Where is the spring? Bai Huan pointed at a place below and said, It's not far over there. However, junior brother, you don't have to go. I have already watered the medicine field. You have already watered it? There are so many medicine fields? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. Of course not. How can I water so many medicine fields in half a day? Bai Huan shook her head and said, These medicine fields don't need to be watered every day. You just need to water one piece a day according to the order. I have already asked the previous senior brothers this morning. According to their habits, they only watered the left piece. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and asked, Are there extra barrels? Yes? Bai Huan was stunned and pointed to the side of the hut and said, There are more than a dozen barrels there, enough for 7 or 8 people. 4 of us are enough. Well, okay, I will go to the spring to take a look. After that, Zhang Xiaohua walked to the side of the hut and took a wooden barrel. Bai Huan smiled apologetically and said, I will accompany junior brother. Don't. Zhang Xiaohua immediately shook her head and said, Senior brother, you should do something else. I will go and take a look, and then I will come back. After that, without waiting for Bai Huan's reply, she lifted her leg and left. Bai Huan knew that Zhang Xiaohua didn't want him to follow, so he looked up and didn't follow. Zhang Xiaohua walked for the time it took to drink a cup of tea. Sure enough, he found a pool of spring water in a low-lying place. The spring water flowed out from the stone wall, forming a small pool. Zhang Xiaohua scanned it with his divine sense and didn't find anything unusual. He fetched a bucket of spring water and returned. Although Bai Huan didn't follow, her eyes kept glancing in that direction. It wasn't until she saw Zhang Xiaohua's figure that she breathed a sigh of relief. Zhang Xiaohua carried the wooden barrel back to the cave. She took out a prenatal stone from her arms and threw it into the barrel. Then she threw the barrel aside and ignored it. Today, she had learned the dream-weaving swordsmanship, which was her biggest gain. It was still early, so Zhang Xiaohua sat cross-legged and finished her homework of comprehending the heavenly Tao. Unknowingly, it was already late. The moon was bright and the stars were few. The entire Tianmu Peak was immersed in darkness. In the hut next to the herb field, there was light at first, but after a long time, it went out. Not long after, there was a slight snoring sound. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared from a corner outside the hut. He looked around and seemed to be listening. Then, he suddenly disappeared. Just like how he appeared just now, if Bai Huan saw him now, she would exclaim that she had seen a ghost. This figure was Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua saw that it was late and there was still some time before midnight, so she used Earth Escape and went to the Dan department on the west side of Tianmu Peak. During the day, the Dan department's alchemy room was bustling with people. Zhang Xiaohua didn't have a chance to get close to it. This night was a good time. The west side of Tianmu Peak was different from the other 3 sides. When Zhang Xiaohua came out of the ground, she saw dots of light. She went to the nearest one and saw that it was where the alchemy room was. Inside, Elder Su was refining pills. There were also several disciples waiting by the side. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua didn't stop. She went down some distance. The alchemy rooms used by the ordinary disciples were all lit up. They were either refining pills or being guarded. It seemed that they didn't rest at night. Zhang Xiaohua frowned slightly. The Dan department's disciples were guarding these alchemy rooms so closely. How could she use these alchemy rooms to refine pills? It wasn't that her alchemy furnace couldn't refine pills, but it was beyond her ability to refine things like meridian-nourishing pills. Perhaps she could only wait for the result of the discussion between Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu. After thinking, Zhang Xiaohua didn't stay any longer. She made a gesture and went underground, heading straight for the cave. But just as she was about to reach the cave, there was nothing under her feet. She actually landed in a spacious area. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. Without waiting for her feet to touch the ground, she rolled and hid in a corner. She reached out and took out Xu Meng, who was still in her arms. He was really frightened by the cave with the black qi under the mountain stream. Zhang Xiaohua's feet touched the ground. She held Zhu Meng in her hands and looked carefully. But this place was pitch black. She couldn't see anything. Also, Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to release her divine sense. She just stood there quietly, on guard for a long time. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua coughed and asked, "Is anyone here?" No one answered. Her voice reverberated in the cave. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua's brows jumped. She remembered that she still had a few luminous pearls in her money pouch. She reached out and took one out. Once that luminous pearl was taken out, it immediately emitted a weak light. Using the light, Zhang Xiaohua sized up this strange place. Looking at it didn't matter. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. Soon after, she released her divine sense. She carefully and boldly looked through the cave that was several tens of feet wide. Then, she took out the remaining luminous pearls in her money pouch and placed them in different places in the cave. In an instant, the entire cave was lit up. Why do you think Zhang Xiaohua was so happy? This was a rather large alchemy room. It was just that there weren't any exits around this alchemy room. There were only a few small holes in the southeast for ventilation. Under the light of the luminous pearl, Zhang Xiaohua carefully looked at this alchemy room. The layout of this alchemy room was different from the ones she had seen before. In the Rejuvenation Valley's alchemy room and the alchemy room that she saw Elder Su in the morning, the alchemy room's alchemy furnace was placed against the mountain wall above the earth fire. However, the alchemy room's alchemy furnace was placed right in the middle. The strangest thing was that this alchemy furnace placed right in the middle was incomparably huge. It was bigger than all the alchemy furnaces that Zhang Xiaohua had seen before. There were actually 8 legs at the bottom of the alchemy furnace. In contrast, the sides of this alchemy furnace actually had 8 round windows that looked like they were used to place medicine. This is an alchemy furnace? Zhang Xiaohua walked closer and used her hand to touch the alchemy furnace that was taller than her by a head. Then, she used her hand to touch the side windows of the alchemy furnace. Then, she used her divine sense to explore it. Sure enough, once her divine sense touched the alchemy furnace, it was immediately bounced back by the restrictions on the alchemy furnace and could not enter it. Zhang Xiaohua was not in a hurry. She made a hand seal and hit the alchemy furnace. After the hand seal hit the alchemy furnace, there was only a slight roar. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed and continued to hit the alchemy furnace with the subsequent hand seals. After a while, there was a crisp sound. The alchemy furnace's restriction was actually broken. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense was no longer obstructed and easily penetrated into the alchemy furnace. The alchemy furnace was the same as the alchemy furnace from before. The alchemy furnace's refining method was engraved on it. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense swept over it, and the name of the alchemy furnace immediately appeared in her mind. 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. -3. Chapter 571. 8 trigrams purple gold furnace? Zhang Xiaohua frowned. What an arrogant name. Although he didn't know what 8 trigrams meant, the name was really pleasant to hear. In his mind, there was also the method to refine this pill furnace. Zhang Xiaohua roughly looked through it, and his tightly knitted brows quietly relaxed. To use this pill furnace, he must first refine it. This was the method used to refine high-level magic tools in the refining the world. Needless to say, this 8 trigrams purple gold furnace must be an extremely good item. I've picked up a treasure! I've picked up a treasure! Zhang Xiaohua was so happy that he almost jumped up. He was about to use the technique to refine the pill furnace, but the time was already late. The refining couldn't be completed in a short period of time. Zhang Xiaohua suppressed his surprise, steadied his mind, and was about to escape the cave. But when he used his divine sense to explore, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The corner of the pill room was about 10 zhang outside. Wasn't it the location of his cave? However, it was blocked by mud and other things. If Zhang Xiaohua accidentally escaped, no one would know that there was a huge pill room about 10 zhang inside the cave. Returning to the cave, Zhang Xiaohua calmed his mind. He took out the primeval stones from his chest, closed his eyes, and began to cultivate at night. Early in the morning, after practicing the Big Dipper fist, Zhang Xiaohua didn't cultivate anymore. He picked up the wooden bucket next to the hut and fetched water from the spring. Only when the huge water jar was filled did he stop. Then, he picked up the hoe and was about to weed the field. At this time, his heart was moved. Could it be that the medicine boy of the immortal Tao was like him, walking step by step in the medicine field and using a hoe to weed? Thinking about it, it was impossible. But how could it be done? Zhang Xiaohua rubbed his chin with his hand, carefully recalling the contents of the 100 Herbs Compendium and other jade slips. There didn't seem to be any records. Alas, he could only hold the field at noon. Zhang Xiaohua lifted his leg and was about to step into the field, but suddenly, he thought of something. He should be able to save the process of bending down to weed. Looking at the hoe in his hand, he couldn't drive it with his spiritual sense. Should he use chasing dream? How shameful, using a flying sword to get rid of weeds. Immortal Tao seniors would laugh themselves to death. Eh? Zhang Xiaohua suddenly cried out. She formed a seal with her hand, and with a wave of her right hand, a weed was pulled out from the ground. Then, another weed was pulled out. Ha ha, Zhang Xiaohua laughed. Wasn't this the seal from the weapon refining school's jade slip? He had used it when he was repairing the array flags in Rejuvenation Valley. He had also inadvertently used it when he was refining the Meridian Nourishing Pill. In the past, he had thought that it could only be used on things with the chi of heaven and earth. It seemed that this incantation was suitable for everything. Perhaps the medicine apprentices of the Immortal Tao also worked like this. Let's not talk about how the medicine apprentices of the Immortal Tao would get rid of weeds for the time being. However, using the weapon refining school's incantation to get rid of weeds, he believed that even the medicine apprentices of the weapon refining school might not be able to grasp it to such a high level. Wasn't he using a sledgehammer to crack a nut? After reaching out to clear the weeds in the medicinal field, Zhang Xiaohua came to an inconspicuous corner of the medicinal field and poured the spring water that she had soaked in primeval stones yesterday into several places. Zhang Xiaohua scanned the spring water with her spiritual sense, and found that it was rich in the chi of heaven and earth. At this moment, a voice shouted from behind. Junior brother Ren, why are you up so early? Junior brother has already cleaned this medicinal field, right? It was Bai Huan, who had just woken up. Zhang Xiaohua turned around and said, Good morning, senior brother Bai. Aren't you going to sleep a little longer? Junior brother was born in a farming family, so waking up early to work is a common occurrence. I'm already used to it. Senior marshal brother, you don't have to be like me. Since Headmaster Chen isn't coming, you can sleep as much as you want. Bai Huan scratched his head and said, Seeing my junior fellow apprentice working so hard, I feel lazy as your senior fellow apprentice, but, I won't be polite to you. Oh, since you have cleaned up the weeds, leave the watering to me. You can have a rest. Zhang Xiaohua didn't hold back and said with a smile, That's good. Then it will be like this in the future. Little brother has finished all the work, senior brother can take your time. Little brother will go back to sleep. If there's nothing else, senior brother won't disturb me. All right, I got it. Bai Huan nodded with a smile and then asked, I'm going down later. Is there anything else you want me to bring up? Let me hold it. Why should I make junior brother make another trip for something that is convenient? My David's deer has a bad temper. If it kicks you away, I can't afford it. Hearing that the David's deer was so irritable, Bai Huan smiled embarrassedly and said, All right, then let me hold it. Then, he went back to water the weeds with a wooden bucket. Zhang Xiaohua shrugged, smiled, and went back to the cave with the wooden bucket. She took out the jade token and wanted to set a restriction formation in front of the cave, but after thinking for a while, she thought that it would be more conspicuous if she tried to cover it up. Zhang Xiaohua went into the elixir room that she found yesterday. Last night was very short, so Zhang Xiaohua didn't have time to look carefully. At this time, except for the huge elixir furnace in the middle, the rest of the elixir room was empty. There was not a single jade bottle on the shelf next to it where the jade bottle should be placed. There was an empty table in front of her, but when her divine sense swept over it, she found a palm-sized jade slip placed neatly on it. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. To be honest, although the elixirs on the shelf were what she expected, she was most willing to get the jade slip that recorded elixir recipes, elixir refining methods, and magic arts. Floating, Zhang Xiaohua came to the table and reached out to grab it, but when she was a few inches away from the jade slip, there was a flash of light and a restriction formation stopped her. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua wasn't surprised. She released her divine sense and carefully observed the restriction formation protecting the jade slip. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua's eyes were filled with confusion, but he also seemed to have gained some enlightenment. He formed an incantation with his hands and struck the barrier. The transparent barrier flickered for a moment before disappearing again. It seemed that the incantation had no effect. Zhang Xiaohua reached into his bosom and was about to pull out Chasing Dream, but when his hand reached into his bosom, he couldn't pull out the small sword. If I use Chasing Dream, I can draw out a warm current from the mysterious place in my left arm and break this restriction, but this is just a trick. The last time I cut open Byron's golden ball, there was a lack of warm current. That is to say, the warm current in my left arm is limited. If I use Chasing Dream to break such a simple restriction, wouldn't it be a waste? If I come across a dangerous place with black gas in the future, what should I do? Zhang Xiaohua hesitated for a moment before coming to a decision. I'll never be able to pry into the mysteries of the great Tao if I only resort to trickery like this. It's better to be down to earth and use the spells that I've comprehended. Furthermore, this Chasing Dream has the effect of breaking spells. It's best to save it for when I'm in danger. Zhang Xiaohua decisively took the hand that was holding Chasing Dream out of her chest and continued to study the protective restriction formation in front of her. After a long time, she smiled. This restriction formation was not common, but it was also not too complicated. It was only used to protect the chi of heaven and earth in the jade slip. It was not much different from the red restriction formation in the Misty Mountain Villa. However, the chi of heaven and earth in Chuanxiang cult was denser than in other places, so the strength of the restriction formation was still there and it was still transparent. The jade slip that Elder Hua left behind contained many methods to break restrictions. Zhang Xiaohua understood most of them, but now that the immortal Tao had been destroyed, there were not many restrictions for him to practice. Although this restriction formation was not strong, it could still stump him for a long time. When he understood it, he was already confident. Dozens of complicated divine sense seals were inserted, and the transparent restriction formation flashed a few times. Then, like a bubble bursting, it disappeared with a pop sound. Yes, it disappeared in the divine sense. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the fruits of his labor and was very satisfied. The feeling of breaking restrictions by himself and using Chasing Dream to break restrictions was really different. Holding the jade slip in his hand, Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense penetrated it without hesitation. Sure enough, it was not outside of his expectations. This was the pill room of Chuanxiang cult. Yuhuandan pill, spirit congealing pill, spirit cleansing pill, and so on. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. He carefully looked at the prescription of the Yuhuandan pill. The prescription clearly recorded the main ingredients, the age of the herbs, the method of operation, and so on. Looking at the time of the pill's gestation, Zhang Xiaohua secretly nodded. It seemed that the Yuhuandan pill and Meridian Nourishing pill of Chuanxiang cult belonged to the Immortal Tao's low-level pills. But when he carefully looked at the main ingredients of the Yuhuandan pill, he could not help but shake his head. The two main ingredients of the Yuhuandan pill were recorded in the Compendium of Herbs. The age of the two ingredients was also more than 50 years. It seemed that in his memory, there was no such ingredient in the herbs that he had just obtained. However, Zhang Xiaohua immediately laughed. Nonsense, this Yuhuandan pill was the secret medicine of Chuanxiang cult. The inner alchemists knew how to refine it, so they naturally knew what herbs were needed. These herbs must be protected. How could they let an ordinary disciple of Tua Dan Hall have it? Then he looked at the other pills, but he did not see the herbs described. Zhang Xiaohua was not discouraged. The qi of heaven and earth was passing away. It was a great fortune to be able to obtain this jade slip. Now that he knew the alchemy room, he only needed to collect the pills to refine it. Right now, he had to refine the alchemy furnace first. Carefully putting the jade slip into his money bag, Zhang Xiaohua turned to face the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace that was taller than him. Under the brilliance of the luminous pearl, the huge body of the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace looked very imposing. Looking at it, Zhang Xiaohua could not help but be puzzled. Should high-grade goods be big? Penetrating his spiritual sense into the furnace, Zhang Xiaohua carefully reviewed the method of refining the alchemy furnace. In the beginning, Zhang Xiaohua was still beaming with joy, but in the end, his relaxed expression gradually disappeared and his brows knitted together. The incantation described how to refine the alchemy furnace. The first part was similar to the method in Zhang Xiaohua's money bag, but the last step was to spit out a trace of the refiner's life origin qi into the alchemy furnace. Only then could he completely control it. What is this life origin qi? Zhang Xiaohua was extremely puzzled. -3. Chapter 572. What is true life origin? That's right, who knows? Perhaps the legendary Foundation establishment cultivators would know. In any case, Zhang Xiaohua, who had just reached the middle stage of the aura refining realm, was completely baffled. However, although she didn't know how to spit out the true life origin, she could control the majority of the spells. Zhang Xiaohua also didn't want to give up this opportunity to refine the pill. If she knew the last step, wouldn't it be fine if she didn't spit it out? Presumably, Zhang Xiaohua closed her eyes and pondered for a while. This refining spell wasn't complicated. She only needed to memorize it for a moment to familiarize herself with it. Then she practiced a little with her hands. She took a deep breath and transferred her true qi to her fingertips. Meticulously, she made a hand seal and sent it into the pill furnace. As the hand seal was sent in, the huge pill furnace gradually moved from motionless to slightly responding. In the end, it actually buzzed, as if a giant was waking up. Seeing that the pill furnace also emitted a 5-colored brilliance, Zhang Xiaohua's forehead gradually became sweaty. However, her face was abnormally excited. Although she had manipulated the small pill furnace like this before, compared to now, the feeling was simply like a little boy playing with mud. The buzzing sound of the pill furnace seemed to be from afar at first, then moved to her ears, then to her eyes, and finally seemed to reach her heart. When the true qi in Zhang Xiaohua's body was about to dry up, the hand seal also reached the end. The buzzing sound also reached the extreme, and the brilliance also became more and more resplendent. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua felt that she seemed to have a trace of connection with the pill furnace. However, this connection was faintly discernible, and she couldn't be sure. Just when she needed to break through this layer of window paper, Zhang Xiaohua stopped. Yes, the next step was to spit. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know how to do it, so she had to stop. With the stop of Zhang Xiaohua's hand seal, the buzzing sound of the pill furnace gradually stopped, and the 5-colored brilliance also gradually faded. However, the buzzing sound was sometimes strong and sometimes weak, and the brilliance was sometimes bright and sometimes dim. It seemed that it had not reached the climax, and it still wanted to continue. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and shrugged, saying, pill furnace, I'm really sorry. I also don't know how to spit. That's it. Finally, you can use it. Be content." After that, regardless of the pill furnace's situation, she sat cross-legged, took out primordial stones, and absorbed the primordial qi inside. Not to mention that Zhang Xiaohua had finished handling the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. In the cave, Bai Huan watered the herbal field, tidied it up, and went down the peak, straight to Chen Fengxiao's residence. Chen Fengxiao was talking to several Luohan and other managers in the hall. When he saw Bai Huan coming over, he felt very strange and waved his hand to let the others leave. He said with a smile, "Junior brother Bai, it's been hard on you. Usually, you are very free here. In the future you will have to suffer at the top of the mountain. Hearing this, Bai Huan quickly bowed and said, It's nothing. It's my honor to be able to do something for Head Qin. Moreover, Head Qin has not mistreated me. Well, that's good. However, you just came up the mountain yesterday, and now you come to me. Is there something wrong with Junior Brother Ren? This? Bai Huan did not know where to start and said, Head Qin, there is nothing wrong with him. Junior Brother Ren is indeed good at planting herbs, just like the medicine boy from Rejuvenation Valley. It's just that, eh? It's just what? Chen Fengxiao was also curious. He sent Bai Huan to keep an eye on Zhang Xiaohua because he wanted to see if there was anything unusual about Zhang Xiaohua. It had only been a day, but she had already given herself away? Therefore, Bai Huan told him that Zhang Xiaohua refused to live in the same hut as him and insisted on living in a cave by herself. What? Chen Fengxiao was also stunned. There is such a person? Instead of living in a good house, he insisted on living in a cave? Chen Fengxiao was also puzzled. He frowned and said, Is this Ren Xiaoyao a woman? Pfft. Bai Huan laughed and said, Head Qin is wise. When did Rejuvenation Valley send a female medicine boy? Moreover, do you think a woman can defeat Qingshi? Besides, although Junior Brother Ren has just arrived, we have been together for a few days. No matter how I look at him, he is not a woman. Chen Fengxiao glared at Bai Huan, and Bai Huan immediately choked back her laughter. Then Chen Fengxiao secretly laughed at his own sensitivity. He is the son-in-law of Rejuvenation Valley. How can he be a woman? Then why does he want to live by himself? Is there any secret? What is the secret? Chen Fengxiao was really puzzled. Then he asked Bai Huan to tell him what she had just said, including the situation after they left yesterday. Still at a loss, Chen Fengxiao rubbed his temples with his hands and thought. Needless to say, this Ren Xiaoyao must have some secret. But he is alone on the high Tianmu Peak in a cave that no one has ever paid attention to. That shabby cave is just a small place. What can he do? Practice internal strength? Yes, I guess he is practicing internal strength. A knowing smile appeared on Chen Fengxiao's face. Yes, he had also practiced internal strength. Naturally, he knew the environment that was important for practicing internal strength. That night was the most important time to cultivate internal strength. It was the most important time to cultivate internal strength. Zhang Xihua's martial arts were not good, but her lightness skill was good. She must have a certain level of attainment in internal strength. He must practice at night. Therefore, he had to live in the cave and cultivate by himself, so that he would not be disturbed by Bai Huan. It had to be said that Chen Fengxiao's conjecture was infinitely close to the truth. Since he's cultivating his internal energy, then he's only trying to increase his strength so that he'll have a chance to pass the outer sect assessment and become an outer sect disciple. This is exactly the same as what he said earlier. And, as long as he doesn't interfere with the affairs of Tianmu Peak and doesn't interact with the disciples of the Grass and Pill divisions, why should I care about him? The more hardworking he is, the higher his martial arts will be. In the future, I will be more confident in winning the bet between the Grass division and Pill division. Why should I not do it? After making up his mind, Chen Fengxiao walked in front of Bai Huan and patted him on the shoulder. Thank you for your hard work, Junior Brother Bai. Then let Junior Brother Ren go. He can do whatever he wants. You just have to keep an eye on him. In fact, you don't have to report to me too much. If you see anything unusual in the future, it won't be too late to tell me. If you come here frequently, you may attract Junior Brother Ren's attention. Oh, of course, we don't have any bad intentions. It's just that he is new here. It's only right that we care about him. If our good intentions are misunderstood by Junior Brother Ren, it won't be good. Don't you think so? That's right, that's right. Headmaster Chen's warmth has blessed all the brothers of Tianmu Peak. Bai Huan's flattery continued. Okay, Junior Brother Bai. Go back now and work hard. Your future is limitless. I have faith in you. Thank you for your guidance, Headmaster Chen. I understand. After saying that, Bai Huan bowed and left. Looking at Bai Huan's gradually disappearing figure, Qin Fengxiao rubbed his chin with his hand and muttered to himself. This junior brother is really interesting. He looks like a person with some ideas, but he keeps such a low profile. Does he only practice martial arts? It's true that practicing martial arts can make you stand out in the incense order, but can you compare to the inner disciples of the incense order? Can you compare to Lu Lihong? Oh, that's right. This guy also exchanged a lot of medicinal herbs. He has quite a lot of good karma and has quite a bit of prestige among the disciples. Could it be that he really did exchange medicinal herbs as he said? Was it really because he had no choice? Or did he have other plans? I can't see through him. I still have to ask Wu Dalong. If this interesting junior brother can really refine pills, then it'll be a secret of my grass division. Thinking of this, Qin Fengxiao's heart was burning with passion. Although he had the highest level of martial arts on Tianmu Peak and was much higher than Wu Zhouxiu, his actual right to speak was much less than Wu Zhouxiu. The most fundamental reason was that Wu Zhouxiu controlled the pill department. The pill department was the place where pills were refined. All the hard currency pills had to pass through the pill department. As mentioned earlier, although the pill expanding hall had strict regulations to control the flow of pills, after all, there are policies at the top and countermeasures at the bottom. Wu Zhouxiu controlled a lot of resources from the pill department. If I can control some pills, Tianmu Peak should be mine. A trace of greed appeared in Qin Fengxiao's eyes. He couldn't sit still any longer. He immediately stood up and walked out. In the pill room, Zhang Xiaohua was cultivating with his eyes closed. The yuan qi of heaven and earth and the vitality stones continuously rushed into his meridians. The speed was actually 2 times faster than before. With the replenishment of the yuan qi, his dried-up meridians were gradually filled with vital qi. Not far away, the newly refined 8 trigrams purple gold furnace also gradually regained its luster. With the replenishment of the vital qi, it seemed to be slowly regaining its vitality. After an unknown period of time, Zhang Xiaohua opened his eyes and secretly checked. He was delighted to find that his cultivation, which had already reached the peak of the 6th layer of qi refining when he was cultivating in Rejuvenation Valley, seemed to have taken half a step forward again. His path to the 7th layer of qi refining was already slightly loosened. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. Ever since he had reached the 6th layer of qi refining, he had never stopped cultivating the Carefree Heart Sutra. However, his progress every day was minuscule. Afterwards, he had made some progress in repairing the formation flags. Today, he had actually taken another crucial half a step in refining the pill furnace. It really was the so-called cultivation should be done during the day. Pursing his lips and smiling, Zhang Xiaohua stood up. He stretched out his hand and pointed at one side of the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. The tightly shut mouth of the furnace slightly rotated, revealing the dark space inside. Soon after, Zhang Xiaohua formed a seal with his hand. With a flick of his finger, the seal landed on the platform below the pill furnace. With a light boom, a wisp of flame actually appeared on the platform. Soon after, the entire platform was set ablaze. The green flame was precisely the bottom of the pill furnace. When the temperature of the pill furnace was suitable, Zhang Xiaohua struck out a few more seals. They hit the opening of the furnace that had just been opened. With another boom, a wisp of flame also appeared inside the pill furnace near the opening of the furnace. This light red wisp of flame contained an even finer purple color. It jumped and jumped as if it had a life of its own. Zhang Xiaohua murmured, "So this is the legendary true Samadhi fire?" -3. Chapter 573. According to the records in the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace, the true Samadhi fire was a fire born from wood fire, stone fire, and air fire. It was the fire necessary to refine top-grade elixirs. And this true Samadhi fire was also a fire specially used by qi cultivators. It was different from the fire in the mortal world. Normal water could not extinguish it. It was 100 times stronger than the fire that Zhang Xiaohua could produce now. Looking at the faint red flame in the pill furnace, Zhang Xiaohua did not seem to feel its heat. Thus, he took out a piece of jade from his bosom and used a small sword to cut off a piece. He threw it into the flame. With a cheese sound, the thumb-sized piece of jade immediately turned into a wisp of green smoke. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua nodded secretly and cut off another piece. After casting a spell into the flame, he threw the jade piece into the flame. This time, the jade piece did not turn into green smoke. Instead, under the tempering of the flame, it gradually shrank and finally became a piece of jade liquid the size of a soybean. Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand and the jade liquid flew out of the furnace and stopped in front of Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua used his eyes to look at the jade liquid and used his divine sense to scan it. That jade liquid actually had a slight fluctuation of vitality. The true Samadhi fire is indeed amazing. Zhang Xiaohua sighed secretly. It's just that this fire is used to refine high-grade elixirs. Normally, refining low-grade elixirs is like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. It's not worth it. After extinguishing the true Samadhi fire, Zhang Xiaohua looked along the 8 sides of the furnace. There were openings on all 8 sides of the furnace, and each opening had a name. They were Qian, Kun, Sun, Dui, Zhen, Jin, Li, Kansas. These 8 openings had their own corresponding formations. When refining elixirs, according to the attributes of the herbs, if different herbs were thrown into different openings for tempering, the medicinal properties would be increased by 30% and the success rate of refining elixirs would be increased by 20%. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua frowned slightly. He already had some experience with the attributes of herbs. It should be divided into the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. How could there be the 8 trigrams attribute here? He had even set up 8 arrays according to the 8 attributes. Furthermore, there was the phrase, pill success rate. Could it be that refining high-level pills was really that difficult? However, the current Zhang Xiaohua could only refine low-tier medicinal pills. She hadn't even come into contact with middle-tier medicinal pills. How would she know the difficulties of high-tier medicinal pills? Fortunately, since this 8 trigrams purple gold furnace could refine high-tier medicinal pills, if she didn't use the true Samadhi fire, it would be the same as the Rejuvenation Valley's furnace. It was more than enough to refine the Meridian Soothing Pill. The flames on the platform below the furnace were magical. It was different from the earth fire in the Rejuvenation Valley and the pill department on the west side of Heaven Eye Peak. This flame was burning on the platform out of thin air. After Zhang Xiaohua finished observing the true Samadhi fire, she extinguished the flames on the platform. Very naturally, she swept her divine sense over the platform. There were complicated symbols carved on the platform. It seemed to be a kind of formation. Presumably, the earth fire could be connected to the bottom of the platform, and this formation was to restrict the earth fire. The pill department on the west side of Heaven Eye Peak should have been the same as the platform in this pill department. It was just that no one was able to perform the incantation, or did not know how to ignite the fire. They had no choice but to tear down the platform and install a mechanism to control the earth fire. Perhaps Rejuvenation Valley was the same 10,000 years ago. Zhang Xiaohua thought. After lamenting the wonders of the immortal Tao, Zhang Xiaohua struck out several incantations according to the records on the furnace. That 8 trigrams purple gold furnace actually shrank a lot like a small furnace. Zhang Xiaohua took out her money pouch and took out the pile of jade coffin lids. She tried to store the furnace inside as well. Then, Zhang Xiaohua took out the 2 pill furnaces and piled the unimportant items in the money pouch on the ground to free up the space in the money pouch. That was because there were still many medicinal herbs piled up on the mountainside of Heaven Eye Peak. They were all needed for refining pills. Although they were worthless in the eyes of the pill-expanding hall disciples, it was better to store them as soon as possible. However, it was indeed a little troublesome to pack them up. If she put all these jade boxes into the money pouch and brought them back to the pill department, it would definitely attract the attention of the other disciples. At the very least, Qin Fengxiao would doubt how she did it, or where these jade boxes were placed. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua turned her gaze to the pile of jade coffin lids. Only by refining them into jade boxes to store the medicinal herbs could she take away the medicinal herbs in the jade boxes. She did as she said. Anyway, there was earth fire in this pill department. She could just treat it as familiarizing herself with refining weapons. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua raised the earth fire again and broke open the jade. She wanted to refine a batch of jade boxes of different sizes. The jade boxes for storing medicinal herbs looked inconspicuous, but in fact, they were quite troublesome. It would be easy if they were slender cubes like those of the pill-expanding hall disciples of the Chuanxiang cult. However, Zhang Xiaohua's jade boxes needed to be set with inhibition. After making only a few, she felt that her genuine qi was not enough, so she had to stop to replenish her genuine qi. She did this and stopped until it was late. However, she only made about 10 of them. Feeling that it was getting late, Zhang Xiaohua extinguished the earth fire and went out directly without packing up. On Tianmu Peak, the sun had already set in the west. There was only a trace of light in the west, and the east had long been hidden in darkness. Zhang Xiaohua came out of the cave and felt that someone was looking at her. She used her spiritual awareness and found that it was Bai Huan who was squatting behind a big tree. Zhang Xiaohua pretended that she did not know. She walked slowly to the medicine field and looked down carefully. Bai Huan came out from behind the tree and said loudly, "Junior brother Ren, it's already dark. Why are you still wandering in the medicine field?" Zhang Xiaohua looked up and smiled. "So it's senior brother Bai. Alas, I stayed in the cave for a day and was very bored, so I came out for a walk. Oh, the medicine field is not germinating. I don't know why. If we can find the reason, won't we be able to hold our heads high?" "Forget it," Bai Huan said disdainfully. Originally, the star tree fruit was planted at the top of Tianmu Peak, which was the main ingredient for refining elixirs by the inner disciples. Moreover, it was growing very well, with a medicinal age of 20 years. But 4 or 5 years ago, our hall master suddenly led the inner disciples here and searched all over the peak for a suitable place. In the end, they settled on these few medicinal fields and plucked all the original star tree fruits and transplanted them to the side. Only then did they plant some unknown seeds. Well, since then, they have never sprouted. Moreover, those inner disciples would come here every year to check and dig out the seeds to take a look. From time to time, they would even change the seeds. How can we do something that even the inner disciples can't do? It's almost the same as a dream. 4 or 5 years ago? Zhang Xiaohua narrowed her eyes and thought. Wasn't that the time when the Misty School was destroyed? Was it also when the incense cult attacked the Misty Villa? Could it be that the disciples of the incense cult saw the germinating seeds of the Misty Villa and thought of planting them themselves? But I don't know what kind of herbs were planted in the Misty Villa and what kind of herbs were planted in the incense cult. However, since even the germination of the seeds requires very rich qi of heaven and earth, this kind of herb must be extremely rare or something that has long been extinct. But since it is an extinct herb, where did they get the seeds? Well, the qi of heaven and earth in the incense cult is richer than outside, maybe it can preserve the seeds. Oh, what about the Huanxi Villa? They can't preserve it, can they? Alas, forget it, don't think about it. I'll just ask Sister O Yen when I have the chance in the future. After thinking about it, Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and said, "That's not necessarily true. The inner disciples are only stronger than us in martial arts. When it comes to planting herbs, doesn't the whole incense cult rely on the grass brothers of the pill-expanding hall?" Bai Huan was also beaming with joy. "Junior brother Rin is right. The herbs we use to spread the incense cult are really the hard work of our brothers from the grass division." Then she changed the topic. "But we only plant ordinary herbs. The ones that don't germinate must be rare herbs. That is not the specialty of our grass division. Hey, you also know that it is a rare herb?" Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself. Just as he was about to speak, Bai Huan beat him to it. "Anyway, I'm not interested in this. As long as I water, weed, and do my job well, I'll wait for the inner disciples to check." "Oh, if Junior Brother Rin is interested in this, you may pay more attention to it. If you can really find the way to germinate, then you will really be rich. You can get the favor of the inner disciples and become an outer disciple, or go to the inner disciple to learn alchemy. It will be easy for you. Zhang Xihua's heart skipped a beat, and she asked, "Do inner disciples also practice alchemy?" Bai Huan shook her head. Inner disciples themselves don't refine elixirs. They have special alchemists who refine elixirs for them. Each of these alchemists is regarded as powerful by the old consecrators of our pill department. It is said that only the alchemists of their inner sect can refine jade rejuvenation elixir. You can never imagine the treatment they receive. Eh? What kind of treatment can I not imagine? Oh, by the way, how do the inner alchemists practice alchemy? Bai Huan was a little hesitant and said, "To be honest, I have only seen the disciples of the pill department practice alchemy. The few old alchemists are not as good as us. How can I know how the inner disciples practice alchemy? Their treatment is just a rumor. How can disciples like us enter the lingering fragrance peak? Can't we go to the lingering fragrance peak?" Zhang Xiaohua was a little curious. Well, only the inner disciples, those who are related to the inner disciples, and the hall masters and deputy hall masters of each hall can enter the lingering fragrance peak. Others can't enter the lingering fragrance peak. What about the outer disciples? The outer disciples are just disciples of the woming hall. Of course, they can't enter the lingering fragrance peak. However, if an outer disciple is very outstanding and can be favored by the inner alchemists or inner teachers, he can enter the lingering fragrance peak. Well, by the way, if an outer disciple can pass the inner assessment, he can also enter the lingering fragrance peak. Alas, unfortunately, as far as I know, it has been 100 years. Except for a genius 300 years ago, no one is qualified to take the inner assessment. Inner assessment? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned again. This was the first time she had heard of it. Well, the outer disciples have an assessment. If they pass it, they can be qualified to travel in Jianghu. The results of this assessment are divided into 3 grades: high, medium, and low. Only with a high grade can they be qualified to take the inner assessment. It has been hundreds of years since anyone got a high grade in the outer assessment. -3. Chapter 574. So complicated? Zhang Xiaohua was a little dumbfounded. Aren't they just inner disciples? Why are the classes so clear? It's not as simple and easy to understand as the commoner and brocade disciples of the Misty School. Zhang Xiaohua curled his lips and said, "According to Senior Brother Bai, the disciples of the Pill Expanding Hall are the lowest disciples in the fragrance cult, right?" Bai Huan smiled and said, "Junior Apprentice Brother Ren, what are you talking about? Sir Hierarch has always taught us that no matter which hall we are from, no matter what business we do, we are all disciples of the fragrant cult and are equal." Then, he whispered, "We are not the worst. The worst is the Qiankuan Hall. They are the handymen and have to do everything in the cult. They can't be picky and suffer hardships." Zhang Xiaohua touched his nose and said secretly, "That's right. You guys are still in the mood to gamble. Planting medicine fields is not the worst. Alas, I don't know how the disciples of the Misty Hall live." He wanted to change the topic and ask, but thinking that Bai Huan might not know anything, he said, "It's late. Senior Brother Bai, why don't you go to bed early? You have to weed and water the fields tomorrow." Bai Huan waved his hand and said, "That's trivial. As a disciple of the grass sect, I have the awareness of being a disciple of the grass sect. These things will not be delayed. If Junior Brother Rin is tired, he should go to bed early. But why don't I see Junior Brother Rin practicing martial arts? On the mountainside, the disciples of the grass sect have specially set aside a big training field for several arhats. Sometimes I also see them practicing. I saw Senior Brother Qian lift such a big stone weight himself. It's really amazing." As he said, Bai Huan made an exaggerated gesture with his hands. Zhang Xiaohua pursed his lips and smiled, saying, "I have my own time to practice martial arts. Senior Brother Bai, don't worry." "Oh, I see." Bai Huan looked enlightened. "I won't disturb Junior Brother Ren. Don't worry, don't worry. Ha! You must tell me in advance the next time you gamble. Bai Huan was still worried. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. Don't worry, Senior Marshal Brother Bai. I've said it many times. Then, he looked at the sky and said, It's still early. I'll go down the mountain and bring the 4 odd beasts up. I'll go with you, Bai Huan said first. Don't! Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly stopped him. I'd better go by myself. It's too slow for 2 people to go. I'll be back in a moment. Oh, I understand. Junior brother, go quickly. It's getting dark. Bai Huan had a look of understanding. Zhang Xiaohua smiled at Bai Huan and stood up. Without looking back, she jumped straight down, which made Bai Huan panic for a while, and then her face was full of envy. The small courtyard on the mountainside was still cold and cheerless. Only the 4 odd beasts were strolling around the courtyard. When they smelled Zhang Xiaohua's breath, they cried out and stuck their tongues on Zhang Xiaohua's hand, licking it again and again. Zhang Xiaohua patted Huan Huan's head to comfort her, and then walked into the courtyard. The mountain of jade boxes had been moved into the house by the disciples of the Grass Division under Chiu Wei Cheng's command, and the whole house was full. After entering the house, Zhang Xiaohua did not light the lamp. She scanned the house with her divine sense, and then took out the money bag. With a wave of her hand, hundreds of jade boxes filled with chi of heaven and earth were put into the money bag. The small mountain of jade boxes suddenly lost hundreds of them, but it was not obvious. Zhang Xiaohua wanted to take more herbs, but the herbs needed for the Yuhuandan pill, spirit congealing pill, and other secret elixirs of the fragrance division were not available here. She could only refine the soothing meridians pill and the bone congealing pill. The formula of the bone congealing pill had not been carefully studied, so she did not know what herbs were needed. Therefore, after thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua picked up the great wisdom sword from the corner of the house, flashed out of the house, and then brought Huan Huan up to the top of Tian Mu Peak. However, just as Zhang Xiaohua came out of the bamboo forest, she suddenly realized that in the corner of the bamboo forest, there was a figure quietly hiding behind a rock, staring at her. Her divine sense swept over, and it was actually the great guardian deity of the Dan department, Zhou Shuming. Eh? Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. Could it be that this guy is interested in the herbs in the small courtyard? But that's not right. If he wanted to take the herbs, he would have taken them a few days ago. Why would he wait until now? Could it be? Zhang Xiaohua could not help but let out a humph from her nose. Sure enough, Zhang Xiaohua rode on Huan Huan all the way up, and Zhou Shuming followed from afar, not coming close. When Zhang Xiaohua reached the peak, and casually put Huan Huan aside, Zhou Shuming quietly hid in a big tree, and watched from afar. Alas! Zhang Xiaohua sighed. This Wu Dalong and Headmaster Chen have the same thoughts. They both want to know my every move. But what do I have that is worthy of your attention? What I don't want you to know, can you know? You can only know what I want you to know. Shaking her head, Zhang Xiaohua no longer paid attention to the guy on the big tree in the distance, who was still trying his best to hide his tracks. She picked up the great wisdom sword and returned to the cave. After inserting the sword at the entrance of the cave and setting up a restriction, Zhang Xiaohua entered the pill room. First, she took out the several hundred jade boxes from the money pouch, and selected the most precious few herbs. She placed them into the jade box she refined, and set up a restriction. Only then did Zhang Xiaohua take out the pill formula for the bone solidifying pill, and carefully studied it from beginning to end. The bone solidifying pill was a pill commonly used by the Immortal Tao, used to heal injured bones and tendons. There were a total of 3 main ingredients: iron bone grass, fragrant soulwood, and blackwood fruit. Early on, when the Immortal Tao was flourishing, these herbs were commonly seen. Moreover, they were very old. The most powerful bone solidifying pill could regenerate broken bones. Wow, Zhang Xiaohua was very excited. This is the true method of the Immortal Tao, regenerating broken bones. Isn't this just a myth in the legends? Although Zhang Xiaohua had successfully refined the meridian soothing pill. Its effects were still uncertain. Zhang Xiaohua herself didn't know whether she should try it or not. However, this bone solidifying pill was really the immortal pill that people usually talked about. How could she not cry out in surprise? The most important thing was that the iron bone grass, fragrant soulwood, and golden fruit were the more commonly used herbs recorded in the Compendium of Materia Medica. A few days ago, Zhang Xiaohua exchanged pills from Chenfeng Xiao, Si Huinan, and Bai Huan in the gambling fight. In fact, it was precisely because these three herbs were relatively common in the past that Zhang Xiaohua could easily exchange for them. As for many other herbs, because Zhang Xiaohua didn't pay attention to them, she didn't know what good ones there were. Since the main ingredients had been prepared, there was no need to talk about the auxiliary ingredients. Zhang Xiaohua carefully recalled that there were a lot of auxiliary ingredients in the jade box just now. Some of them should be in the small courtyard on the mountainside. When it was time to refine the bone solidifying pill, she could go and get them. Well, there was no need. Anyway, she would refine the jade box in a few days and bring the following herbs to the elixir room. The bone solidifying pill was a low-level elixir, and its refining method was similar to that of the meridian soothing pill. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the refining method on the prescription and put it away. Then, she ignited the earth fire on the platform and continued to refine the jade box for the herbs. This time, she didn't use Zhang Xiaohua's own jasper. Wasn't the empty jade box just right? She should save as much as she could. Until late at night, Zhang Xiaohua didn't go out. Instead, she sat cross-legged in the elixir room and practiced her Carefree Heart Sutra. In this way, Zhang Xiaohua took care of the medicine field in the early morning and hid in the elixir room to refine the jade box. Then, she comprehended the heavenly Tao and the formation and restriction. Then, she would show up in the medicine field from time to time and water the spring water that had been soaked in primordial stones in an inconspicuous corner of the medicine field. Well, when the night was deep, Zhang Xiaohua still had to avoid Zhou Shuming's gaze. Every day, she would go to the small courtyard on the mountainside with the 100 Herbs Compendium in her hand and identify the herbs in the jade box in the small courtyard. Then, she would put them into her own jade box and leave the empty jade box in the small room. Needless to say, the fragrance cult was indeed a great cult with immortal inheritance, and the pill-expanding hall was indeed the place where the fragrance cult supplied herbs. There were thousands of strange herbs in these thousands of jade boxes. Many of them were not recorded in the ancient books of Rejuvenation Valley. They were all immortal herbs recorded in the 100 Herbs Compendium. Every time she saw rare herbs, Zhang Xiaohua secretly admired her own wisdom. If she hadn't had the idea of exchanging elixirs for herbs, how could she have made these disciples take out their herbs? Moreover, Bai Huan and Si Huinan had made a good start by exchanging rare or unknown herbs for elixirs. Although they didn't want to say it clearly, how could there be a wall in the world that didn't have a crack? The disciples of the herb division and the pill division had already investigated them thoroughly. Therefore, when those disciples took out herbs to exchange for the elixirs they owed Zhang Xiaohua, they also lost face. They were all very good herbs. Of course, if they weren't rare, how could they be collected by them? Not to mention Chenfeng Xiao and Wu Zhouxiu, they took out even rarer herbs. They couldn't afford to lose face. Exchanging ordinary herbs for elixirs. Could they be taken out? It was very tiring to refine the jade boxes. It was even more tiring to take out the herbs from the jade boxes and find the names and uses of the herbs from the 100 Herbs Compendium, not to mention repeating the same action in thousands of jade boxes. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua had been busy tirelessly and happily for nearly 20 days. Only then did she gradually transfer her astonishing wealth from the small courtyard at the mountainside to the pill room at the top of the mountain, leaving only a pile of empty jade boxes in the small courtyard. Alas, it wasn't that Zhang Xiaohua didn't want to take these jade boxes. Unfortunately, the space in her purse was limited and she really couldn't fit them all. Moreover, she had to hide something, so she had to reluctantly part with them. On this day, Zhang Xiaohua was comprehending the way of heaven in the pill room. Suddenly, her heart stirred. She escaped into the cave, tidied her clothes, and walked out. She heard someone shouting outside the cave. "Little brother, are you here?" -3. Chapter 575. That voice belonged to the head of Tianmu Peak's grass division, Qinfeng Xiao. Zhang Xiaohua replied as she walked. "Master Chen, is it? Little brother is sleeping. Please wait a moment, I'll be out soon." Although she said soon, she had already walked to the side of the cave. When she exited the cave, she saw Qinfeng Xiao standing nearby with his hands clasped behind his back. Zhang Xiaohua quickly walked forward and bowed. Just as she was about to speak, Qinfeng Xiao beat her to it. "Little brother, you're in such a good mood. You don't even want to stay in a nice little house, but insist on staying in this cave. If I hadn't come up the mountain to find you, I wouldn't have known." Seeing that Qinfeng Xiao was trying to hide something, Zhang Xiaohua also smiled. She turned around and pointed at the sun that was already high up in the sky. "Little brother's lifelong wish is to bask in the warmth of the sun from time to time. Look, isn't this cave to the east? The first ray of sunlight is delivered to my eyes every day. It's truly like a celestial life." "Celestial life?" Qinfeng Xiao laughed hoarsely. "Little brother's request is truly extraordinary. However, this cave is dark and damp. Don't let it affect little brother's health." Zhang Xiaohua shook her head. "Thank you for your concern, Head Chen. Before I went to Rejuvenation Valley, little brother also stayed in the cave at home. It's fine, it's fine." Then, she immediately changed the topic. "Head Chen, may I know why you've come so early in the morning? Could it be that you want to bet again?" "Ha!" Hearing this, Qinfeng Xiao smiled. "It seems that little brother didn't get enough of the last bet. You must have gained a lot, so you're looking forward to the next one. However, we schemed too much against the pill division last time. They haven't found a way to deal with little brother yet. I think we'll have to wait." "It can't be, Head Chen. Our grass division was originally weaker than the pill division. Even with me, we still haven't caught up to them. Why are they afraid?" Qinfeng smiled and waved his hand, saying, "These are just a few reasons. Actually, it's not like we can just hold a bet whenever we want. If our Tianmu Peak had a bet every few days, how would the disciples have the mood to work? Even if he wanted to concoct pills, he would still be thinking about the bet. How could he succeed? It's already good enough that we can hold a duel once a month. It was purely a coincidence that little brother participated last time. It's precisely because we haven't held one for a long time that Wu Dalong brought it up." Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood. "So that's how it is. If it's too frequent, Bai Yefeng probably won't agree, right?" "That's right. Hee hee. Moreover, the pill department seems to be busy with some missions these days. It's not easy for me to find Wu Dalong to discuss some matters." Then, he looked around and said, "Actually, I have something to tell you this time." Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said in a low voice, "Leader Chen, if there's anything you need, please instruct me. I'll do my best to accomplish it." "Ha ha!" Qinfeng laughed awkwardly and said, "Little brother, don't say that. This time, I'm here because—" He seemed to be unable to say it out loud. Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, "Could it be that head boss Chen still wants some medicinal pills? I don't have any more here." "Not at all, not at all." Qinfeng waved his hand repeatedly. "For such a miraculous medicine like the Wandan pill, one is enough. How could I dare to think more? If it weren't for Wu Daoling's carelessness, I would still be salivating at the side. Well, this time it's really related to medicinal pills." Seeing that Qinfeng couldn't say it out loud, Zhang Xiaohua was very curious. She lowered her voice and said, "Oh, I understand. Is it about alchemy?" Qinfeng's face was a little uncomfortable. He said, "Yes." Zhang Xiaohua looked expectant. She rubbed her hands and said, "That's great. When can you take me to see the alchemy room of our pill-expanding hall?" "Well?" Qinfeng became more and more embarrassed. He said, "This time I'm here to talk to little brother. This matter may be ruined." "Eh?" Zhang Xiaohua frowned and asked curiously. What's wrong? Can't you find an alchemy furnace for me to practice? Practice? Chen Feng was also taken aback. Zhang Xiaohua slapped his forehead with a remorseful expression and said in a low voice, Head Manager Chen, please don't blame me. This little brother hid some things from you the last time. Although this little brother has learned alchemy in Rejuvenation Valley, but it's just a simple technique. Alas, forget it. Head Manager Chen isn't an outsider, so this little brother will speak frankly. This little brother came to preach the incense religion in order to learn the lost alchemy techniques from the old masters of the Pill Expanding Hall. I originally wanted to bring this matter up after I got familiar with Head Manager Chen, but since Head Manager has brought it up, I can only say it in advance. Oh, I see. Chen Feng's face was a little strange. He said with a smile. So little brother has such a plan. Haha, I can understand. However, I'll have to disappoint little brother. Zhang Xiaohua didn't understand. Why? Didn't little brother say some time ago that you can practice alchemy? But our grass division doesn't have an alchemy room. I went to find Wu Dalan of the Pill Division, but I couldn't find him. I just caught him at dinner the day before yesterday. When he heard what I said, he immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. Only then did I know that the alchemy room of the Pill Division has rules. Only the disciples of the Pill Division who have passed the assessment of the Hall Master have the right to enter. We of the Grass Division don't have the right to enter at all. Because no one in the Grass Division knows alchemy, I also overlooked it. I thought that since our brothers of the Grass Division can sneak in to watch, we can definitely borrow it. But now, it seems that even if we sneak in, it's fine as long as we don't touch those alchemy furnaces. But if we want to secretly practice alchemy, it's absolutely impossible. Ah. So it's like that. Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of surprise. When he went to take a look last night, the disciples of the Pill Division were guarding the door of the alchemy room. What Chen Fengxiao said was true. Can't we even use it for a while? Zhang Xiaohua said regretfully. Then, if I look for Elder Lei and the others to learn alchemy, wouldn't it be? Chen Fengxiao nodded and said, That's right. Our disciples of the Grass Division can't use the alchemy furnaces of the Pill Division. Moreover, I'm afraid your wish will be in vain. Wu Dalan can't even lend us his alchemy furnaces, let alone ask their elders to learn alchemy. Then, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to say something, but stopped. Chen Fengxiao immediately understood and waved his hand. Don't think about other things. Since you're a medicine boy sent by the Rejuvenation Valley, you're a member of the Grass Division alive and dead. There's no way you can go to the Pill Division. Perhaps being an outer disciple is the place where you have the most hope and the most future. Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of disappointment and loneliness. Chen Fengxiao couldn't bear to see Zhang Xiaohua like this. He reached out and patted Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder, saying, It doesn't matter. Little brother, your skills are very good. If you practice more on this mountain peak, you might really be able to join the outer disciples in a few years. Although he said this, his tone showed that he didn't expect Zhang Xiaohua to have such a day. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and looked at the sun in the sky. He said confidently, Yes, I will. There will be such a day. Thank you, Head Chen, for your encouragement. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua's face full of vitality, Chen Fengxiao was suddenly touched. Wasn't he like this when he was young? Sigh, it's a pity then, Chen Fengxiao said. Then little brother, you can cultivate on this mountain peak. I'm really looking forward to another disciple from our Grass Division who can break into the outer disciples. After saying this, Chen Fengxiao patted Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder again and walked down the mountain. He had already given up on the idea of refining pills. First of all, the Pill Division couldn't lend their pill room to the Grass Division. First of all, this Zhang Xiaohua was just a shibei trash. He actually wanted to use the Pill Division's pill room to practice? Moreover, he wanted to learn alchemy from the old consecrator of the Pill Division. How could this be possible? At this moment, Chen Fengxiao was secretly laughing at his own absurdity these days. Thinking about it, it was impossible. This Zhang Xiaohua was just a medicine boy sent by the Rejuvenation Valley. If he knew the ancient method of refining pills, why would the Rejuvenation Valley send him to the Incense Division? Based on Zhang Xiaohua's explanation, the Incense Division's true purpose was to teach him alchemy. Forget it. My current situation is not bad. This Ren Xiaoyao can be considered an arhat bestowed by the heavens. Since he can't refine pills, I'll use him for gambling in the future. Learning alchemy? It's better to practice martial arts and earn more pills for myself. Looking at Chen Fengxiao's back as he went down the mountain, Zhang Xiaohua also smiled. During this period of time, he had been tempering the jade box and organizing the herbs, so he had forgotten about his agreement with Qin Fengxiao. Since the pill division did not allow the grass division to have a share of the elixir room, Zhang Xiaohua was even more free. If he really lent the elixir room to the grass division, wouldn't Zhang Xiaohua become Qin Fengxiao's free alchemist? Bai Huan did not stay aside, Zhou Shuming did not peep from a distance, and Zhang Xiaohua did not return to the cave. He walked slowly to a corner of the herb field and carefully looked at the seeds that had been watered with spring water. Wherever his divine sense passed, the primordial qi contained in the seeds seemed to be a little more than the other seeds. It seemed that if he continued to water them, there might be hope for them to germinate. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua now had to consider whether he should continue to water them. If he did not water them, naturally, the primordial qi in the seeds would not increase by itself, and they would not germinate. Of course, the inner core disciples would not know. On the contrary, Zhang Xiaohua himself would not know whether the seeds would really germinate or not. Of course, if he continued to water them, although he could see his own thoughts, it would inevitably attract the attention of others. Of course, was Zhang Xiaohua a person who was afraid of trouble? No, he was not. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua watered the seeds with some water again. The path of the immortal Tao required one to be diligent and diligent. If one were to retreat at the slightest bit of trouble, not to mention the effects, then the cultivation of one's temperament would be inferior. How would one be able to cultivate successfully? Zhang Xiaohua returned to the alchemy room and tidied up the herbs. Then, he placed the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace back onto the platform and ignited the fire. He was about to take out the bone-solidifying pill formula from his money pouch when his divine sense noticed a dark green jade slip in the corner. -3. Chapter 576. The dark green jade slip was obtained by Zhang Xiaohua in the Misty School's library when the restriction was about to collapse. At that time, Zhang Xiaohua did not have the ability to break the restriction on the jade slip, so he casually threw it into his money bag. Beside the jade slip, there was also a pair of red jade bracelets that he obtained when Lu Zhen angrily punished the tyrant. Taking out these 2 things, Zhang Xiaohua carefully looked at them again. The fluctuation on the jade slip was still there, and there was no sign of dissipating, but the fluctuation on the red jade bracelets felt weaker than before. Without thinking too much, Zhang Xiaohua first took the pair of jade bracelets in his hand. Now that Zhang Xiaohua's vision had been broadened, he already knew that this jade bracelet was a kind of magic tool, not a jade slip that recorded the cultivation method like before. However, he still had no clue how to refine it, and how to use it. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua closed his eyes and recalled the contents of Refining the World. Although Refining the World was a method to refine magic tools, it also recorded the refining method of ordinary magic tools. After looking at it for a long time, Zhang Xiaohua already had a general idea in his heart. He had already refined the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace a few days ago. Although he did not use the general method in refining the world, after all, he had some experience. He carefully recalled the refining steps from beginning to end in his heart. Then he threw the jade bracelet into the air, and his left hand made a seal to hit the jade bracelet. The seal hit the jade bracelet, but the jade bracelet did not seem to have any reaction. Zhang Xiaohua was not in a hurry. He took a deep breath, and then followed the seal in an orderly manner. With the seal in, the dim jade bracelet gradually had some brilliance, just like the previous pill furnace, but the brilliance emitted by the jade bracelet was light red. The refining seal was all hit into the jade bracelet, but the jade bracelet still did not have much brilliance. Zhang Xiaohua smiled. The heaven and earth essence in this jade bracelet was too serious. If it could be restored to its previous state with just a few seals, Zhang Xiaohua would not believe it. So, Zhang Xiaohua again hit the seal from beginning to end. This time, when the last seal was hit, the jade bracelet suddenly emitted a bright red light, and then, a strong suction force was produced. Following the direction of the seal, the true qi in Zhang Xiaohua's body was sucked in. Bad food. Zhang Xiaohua was immediately shocked. He had encountered such a situation before. He did not dare to neglect. He took out the primordial stone from his arms and put it in one hand, and the true qi in the other hand was continuously poured into the jade bracelet. In a short time, the true qi in his body. What magic tool is this jade bracelet? Why does it need so much true qi? So, while absorbing the primordial qi from the primordial stone, he also sent it into the jade bracelet. Alas, Zhang Xiaohua was also bold. He was only in the middle stage of qi refining. Although that little true qi was a lot, if he wanted to drive the magic tool, especially this kind of magic tool that was about to lose its primordial qi, then he must first restore the lack of primordial qi. How could the heaven and earth essence be provided by Zhang Xiaohua now? In this era where the primordial qi was scarce, it was almost impossible for others to do it. It was a good thing that Zhang Xiaohua had primeval stones. Otherwise, he would have been sucked dry by the artifact if he tried to repair it. After an unknown period of time, the jade bracelet gradually floated in the air. The brilliance was no longer brilliant, and it became gentler. The speed of absorbing true qi also slowed down. Until now, Zhang Xiaohua had the leisure to look up at the pair of jade bracelets in the air. This was a pair of red luster jade bracelets engraved with some patterns. There was a faint flow of flames inside the jade bracelets. Looking at it carefully, there was nothing special about it. At this time, the primordial qi fluctuation on the jade bracelet was also extremely strong. Then, the jade bracelet stopped absorbing Zhang Xiaohua's true qi, and a fluctuation was transmitted into Zhang Xiaohua's mind. Zhang Xiaohua read the fluctuation and was overjoyed. He did not waste so much true qi. This fluctuation was the method to control the jade bracelet. It turned out that the name of this jade bracelet was Dragon Binding Bracelet. Just from the name, it could even bind a dragon. Zhang Xiaohua carefully studied the method to control it, and his heart gradually became more confident. With a wave of his hand, the floating Dragon Binding Bracelet that had returned to its original state fell into his hand. Zhang Xiaohua fondled it lovingly for a while, and then kept it in his money bag. He wanted to try out the power of the Dragon Binding Bracelet now, but the true qi in his body was already empty. How could he use it? Moreover, the time was already late, and he still had his daily routine to do. The next morning, Zhang Xiaohua finished his work as a grass sect disciple and released his divine sense. Looking carefully, he actually did not find Zhou Shuming, who had been spying on him. This guy hasn't been around for a few days. Did he catch some illness? And for sure. The wind on this mountain is strong, and he even climbed so high. How could he stand it, ha ha. As Zhang Xiaohua thought, he escaped to a place where there was no one. After confirming that there was no one around, Zhang Xiaohua took out the pair of jade bracelets from his arms. His left hand made a gesture and threw the jade bracelets into the air. The jade bracelets expanded with the wind, and in an instant they were 3 feet long. Zhang Xiaohua cast the spell and pointed his finger at a towering mountain rock in the distance. The jade bracelets followed the direction of Zhang Xiaohua's finger and flew over with a whoosh. In an instant, they covered the mountain rock from top to bottom. Then, Zhang Xiaohua began to make another gesture to activate the other functions of the jade bracelets. However, just as the gesture was made, Zhang Xiaohua felt that the true qi in his body was sucked dry. Moreover, the gesture was still not completed. What kind of gesture is this? It actually requires so much true qi? Zhang Xiaohua did not dare to use it again. He shook his hand and stopped the gesture midway. Fortunately, there were no signs of true qi backfiring. Looking at the 2 jade bracelets on the mountain rock, Zhang Xiaohua shook his head. Sigh, it wasn't easy to get a more advanced item, but I can't use it. This is really annoying. With a sigh, Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand. The jade bracelets flew back from the mountain rock and shrunk back to their original size. Zhang Xiaohua reached out to catch them and put them into his arms. At this moment, the corner of Zhang Xiaohua's eyes twitched. He immediately released his divine sense. On the mountain road, a thin and tall figure was using Qinggong to climb up. Wasn't that the stalker Zhou Shuming who hadn't been seen for the past few days? When did this guy change from being in the dark to being in the open? Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. He then escaped underground and rushed to a corner of the medicine field before Zhou Shuming. When Zhou Shuming reached the top of Tianmu Peak, he saw Zhang Xiaohua standing on the ridge of the medicine field. It was the place where she used to work. Naturally, he did not suspect her. Before he reached her, he smiled and said, "Junior Brother Ren, Junior Brother Ren?" Zhang Xiaohua pretended to be surprised. He turned his head and said, "Oh, so it's Senior Brother Zhou. I haven't seen you for a long time. Why did you suddenly come to our Tianmu Peak today?" At this moment, Bai Huan, who was lazing around in the small house, heard the call and walked out. She smiled charmingly and said, "Senior Brother Zhou, what a rare guest." Zhou Shuming cupped his hands and said, "Ever since I lost to Junior Brother Ren, I've been facing the wall and thinking hard about why I lost to him. However, I haven't found an answer. Today, seeing Junior Brother cultivate so hard, as your senior brother, I'm really ashamed. I accept my loss wholeheartedly." Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself, but said, "Senior Brother Zhou is too polite. I'm just used to working. If I don't work for a day, my hands and feet will itch, so—" Zhou Shuming waved his hand and said, "Junior Brother Ren, don't mention it. I used to be born with a hard life. It's just that I've enjoyed too much now, so I've regressed in martial arts." After he finished speaking, he turned to Bai Huan and said, "Junior Brother Bai, I have something to ask Junior Brother Ren. Do you think—" When Bai Huan heard this, she immediately pointed to a medicine field in the distance and said, "Senior Brother Zhou, you can talk to Junior Brother Ren. There's a medicine field over there that hasn't been watered yet. I'll go there now. You guys can talk." After she finished speaking, she winked at Zhang Xiaohua and walked away quickly. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Bai Huan's eyes and couldn't figure out what she meant by that. She could only turn to Zhou Shuming and ask, "Senior Brother Zhou, is there something urgent that you have to trouble you to go to the peak in person?" Zhou Shuming looked around. There was no one else, but he was still worried. He pointed to a cliff and said, "Junior Brother Ren, let's talk over there." After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Zhang Xiaohua to answer and walked over first. Zhang Xiaohua didn't hesitate and followed behind him. When they reached the edge of the cliff, Zhou Shuming thought for a moment and said, "Junior Brother Ren, I'm here on behalf of our pill department's Wu Daolong to say a few words to you. I hope you can seriously consider it." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. Puzzled, she asked, "Since Wu Daolong has something to do, why didn't he come up himself?" "Haha, this matter is a little complicated, so it's inconvenient for Daolong to come. However, Daolong hopes that only you and I will know about this matter. Don't let a fourth person know." "Huh? What's the matter? Why is it so mysterious?" Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. "Haha, it's not a big deal. Maybe it's a good thing for you. As long as you agree, I'll tell you." "Well, I won't tell anyone about this today. Senior Brother Zhou, please tell me." Zhou Shuming nodded and said, "Okay, since Junior Brother Ren has agreed, I'll get straight to the point. Junior Brother Ren, do you want to learn the pill department's alchemy technique?" "Huh? How does Senior Brother Zhou know?" "Haha, don't ask too much about this. I'm just asking you according to Daolong's original words. You just need to answer." Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "Yes, but I wonder if Daolong has a way to get the pill department's high priest to teach me the alchemy technique?" Okay, it's just as Dalong expected. Dalong wants me to ask you again. If you learn the alchemy technique, are you willing to pay the price? Price? Zhang Xiaohua was curious. What exactly is the price? Zhou Shuming chuckled and said, It's very simple, it's your 500 taels of gold. As long as you take out 500 taels of gold, your wish to learn alchemy will be fulfilled. -3. Chapter 577. 500 taels of gold can make the old consecrator of the pill department teach me alchemy? Zhang Xiaohua opened her mouth wide in disbelief. Zhou Shuming smiled and said, That's right. As long as you take out the 500 taels of gold leaves, you'll get what you want. But, Zhang Xiaohua hesitated and said, Isn't it the rule of our pill expanding hall that the grass department disciples can't come into contact with the pill room? How can they teach alchemy? Zhou Shuming snorted and said, Rules are set by people. Since ancient times, there has been an example of doctors can't be punished. This rule can restrict you and me, but it can't restrict others. Others? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. Who is others? Wu Dalong. Zhou Shuming knew he had blurted out and hurriedly said, Don't ask who it is. Just tell me if you agree? Zhang Xiaohua touched her chin and said, But, how do you know I want to make alchemy? And learn alchemy from the old consecrator? Zhou Shuming said angrily. Didn't I say it was Wu Dalong's order? Alas, to tell you the truth, your headmaster Chen of the grass department has been on Tianmu Peak for decades and he has never asked Wu Dalong to lend him the pill room. He has always taken the pills. Now that you've come, he immediately asked Wu Dalong to lend him the pill room and asked the old consecrator about alchemy. Also, you've collected a lot of medicinal herbs. How can our Dalong not know you want to learn alchemy? Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, Headmaster Chen is a little impatient. I'm just curious about the alchemy of our pill expanding hall and want to learn. Halfway through, she suddenly changed her words. Can Wu Dalong ask the old consecrator to teach me alchemy? Dalong can't, but... Zhou Shuming blurted out carelessly, but he immediately understood and said, A straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. Junior brother Run, don't try to sound me out. I really don't know anything. You just have to tell me if it's okay or not. Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said, I am sorry to disappoint Wu Dalong. How can Xiodi's gold leaf be worth 500 taels? 200 taels was already not bad. Of course, telling Senior Marshal Brother Qing 500 taels was just to extort him. Senior Marshal Brother Zhou, where are you going to get 300 gold taels from? We don't even have pills of the same value. We only have the herbs in the hut on the mountainside. What? No more than 500 taels? Zhou Shuming looked at Zhang Xiaohua in disbelief. Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, That golden leaf was only given to me by Rejuvenation Valley. Do you think I'm an important person? They gave me 500 taels of gold all at once. I'm already burning incense to be able to get 200 taels. This? Zhou Shuming sucked in a breath. He was a little embarrassed. After thinking for a while, he asked, How about this, Junior Brother Ren? I've been very thoughtful as your messenger. What if you give these 200 taels of gold to Dalong and ask him to find you a consecrator to teach you about medicinal pills? What do you think? Why do I need your consecrator to teach me alchemy? I just want Headmaster Chen to find a place to refine pills. I've never thought of learning alchemy from the old consecrator. Moreover, I've already found a pill room and a magical pill furnace. Why should I dawdle with you? Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself. She then cupped her hands and said, Senior Marshal Brother Zhou, please report back to Wu Dalong and thank him for his kindness. However, I know my own aptitude. Even in Rejuvenation Valley, I couldn't learn any alchemy skills, let alone the consecrators of our pill-expanding hall who have godlike alchemy skills. I don't dare to have extravagant hopes. Zhou Shuming obviously didn't expect Zhang Xiaohua to refuse. He asked, Junior Brother Ren, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You've really decided? Don't regret it in the future. I've decided. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, I don't have any lofty ambitions since I was a child. I only hope to be able to farm and practice martial arts. That's the best life for me. Well, since junior brother Ren has made a choice, I'll report back to Dalong. Zhou Shuming sighed and turned to leave with his lightness skill. In the distance, Bai Huan hid behind a tree and watched quietly. After Zhou Shuming left, she quickly walked forward and asked, Junior brother Ren, why did senior martial brother Zhou look for you? Zhang Xiaohua looked at Bai Huan with a faint smile and said, It's nothing. Wu Dalong of the pill department wants me to join him because he sees that I'm good at martial arts. Join him? Bai Huan didn't understand for a moment. He wants me to be a disciple of the pill department? Zhang Xiaohua said grumpily. Humph, Bai Huan curled her lips and said disdainfully, How is that possible? Although Wu Dalong is the head of the pill department of Tianmu Peak, he doesn't have any authority to transfer you from the grass department to the pill department. Only the 2 hall masters of our pill repository hall can do this. Don't tease me. The 2 hall masters? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned for a moment, but he immediately understood something. He snorted from his nose. The 2 hall masters' appetites are not small, and their hands are also not short. Appetites? Bai Huan was puzzled. How can our hall master and deputy hall master Su take a fancy to a nobody like you? Tell me, why did senior martial brother Zhou look for you? Alas, what else can it be? It's about the next gambling fight. The next gambling fight, what's the matter? Bai Huan's eyes immediately lit up. The time of the next gambling fight hasn't been set. Senior martial brother Zhou just wants me to be merciful if I meet him at that time. Pfft, Bai Huan couldn't help laughing. Junior brother Ren, you're so funny. Senior martial brother Zhou is the head of the 10 great Vajras, and he wants you to be merciful? Please don't tell such a low-level lie, okay? Forget it. Look, I'm telling you the truth, but you don't believe me. Then why are you still listening? Zhang Xiaohua was a little displeased and turned to leave. Junior brother Ren. Bai Huan raised her hand and wanted to stop Zhang Xiaohua, but then she thought, Alas, Headmaster Chen just wants me to keep an eye on him and tell him whatever he says. Why should I make him unhappy? I still have to rely on him to make progress in the gambling fight in the future. After that, Bai Huan didn't follow Zhang Xiaohua. She walked to a medicinal field and didn't mention weeding and watering. Zhang Xiaohua saw that Bai Huan didn't ask shamelessly and relaxed. He didn't want everyone to know that he wanted to refine pills and learn alchemy from the consecrated elders of the pill division. Therefore, he walked into the cave and entered the pill room. Zhou Shuming returned to the mountainside and told Wu Zhouxiu what Zhang Xiaohua said. What? He's actually not willing? Wu Zhouxiu was also a little surprised. Then, he snorted and said, It's really hard to be a good person these days. If it weren't for what you said, this Ren Xiaoyao can live alone in the cave and cultivate his internal strength. I think he's a promising talent. I wouldn't be bothered to find a consecrated elder to teach him alchemy. He's just an ordinary disciple of the grass division. They can easily destroy him. Speaking of this, he stopped abruptly and said to Zhou Shuming with a smile, Well, junior brother Zhou, you've worked hard. Just tell him what I said. If he's not willing, then let him be. It seems that I really care about his golden leaves. By the way, keep a close eye on this Ren Xiaoyao in the future. If there's anything, report back as soon as possible. Okay, don't worry. I'll definitely keep a close eye on him. In fact, he spends most of the day in the cave. I can't see him clearly and I don't know what he's doing. Humph, I know about that cave. I've occasionally been there before. It's just a small cave. Besides refining his internal strength, can he also refine pills? If he's in the cave, let him stay there. Just keep a close eye on his tracks when he comes out. Zhou Shuming saluted and came out, then went to keep a lookout. Wu Zhouxiu sat in a chair and frowned slightly. This young man is still young. He can't tell what's important and what's important. I've already made Zhou Shuming speak so clearly. Don't you know what I'm hinting at? He told me to hint to you to send the golden leaves over. I even added a condition to let you learn how to refine pills. I've already done my duty. If you don't appreciate it, then I have nothing to say. Fine, since you're a disciple of the grass sect, I'll just tell you what I said. I can't do anything else. After thinking, he shouted, "Third MO." A disciple answered and came in, bowing to salute. Wu Joshi walked in front of him and whispered a few words. "That's how it is. You go and report to Vice Hall Leader Su. Even if Ren Xiaoyao is a member of the grass sect, I can only reveal his intentions to him. Ren Xiaoyao actually dares to not put me in his eyes. I don't have any good ideas, so I'll have to ask him to make a decision." The disciple listened carefully, then turned and left the hall. Behind him, Wu Joshi still shook his head slightly, leaving aside the fact that Wu Joshi of the Pill sect had designs on Zhang Xihua's golden leaves. In the pill room on Tianmu Peak, Zhang Xiahua was holding the green jade slip, thinking of a way to break the seal. This jade slip was not like a magic weapon, it did not need to be refined. Moreover, Zhang Xiahua had first come into contact with this kind of jade slip, so she was familiar with it. This jade slip was different from others. The seal on it was very exquisite, it could actually isolate Zhang Xiaohua's spiritual sense. It was comparable to refining the world. Of course, it was also because she suffered a great loss from breaking the seal on refining the world, that her Dan core in her Naiwan palace was almost damaged. This time, Zhang Xiahua was unusually cautious. Zhang Xiahua released her spiritual sense and looked at the seal on her own. She reviewed the seals that she had learned previously, as well as the ways to break the jade slip in refining the world. Then, she threw the jade slip into the air. Following that, her left hand formed a seal and sent the seal into the jade slip. Indeed, after trying a few methods, the seal on the jade slip actually loosened. It was completely different from before when there was no reaction at all. Thus, Zhang Xiahua did not delay. Her hands formed seals and sent the rest of the seals into the jade slip. Not long after, the seal was completely broken. She did not encounter the situation where her spiritual sense was absorbed. Looking at the green jade slip in the air, it was as green as bamboo after the rain. Zhang Xiahua did not hesitate to send her spiritual sense into it. When she saw the contents of the jade slip, she could not help but raise her eyebrows in joy. -3. Chapter 578. The words on the jade scroll were, "Flight Technique." It was the flight technique that Zhang Xiahua had learned during the day and at night. Zhang Xiahua was overjoyed as he carefully read the contents of the jade scroll from the beginning. Just as he saw the beginning of the jade scroll, Zhang Xiahua was stunned. Dear readers, what do you think? It turned out that the beginning of the flight technique was the ethereal steps that Openg had given to Zhang Xiahua when he was at the Misty Mountain Villa. And this ethereal steps was different from the ethereal steps that Zhang Xiahua had learned back then. This ethereal steps was only a part of what He Tianshu had taught him previously. It was also the levitation technique that He Tianshu would never be able to learn. Reading up to this point, Zhang Xiahua began to ponder. This levitation technique is obviously the foundation of the flight technique. The ethereal steps that the Misty Mountain Villa sent over previously must have been a footwork technique that was improved and suitable for martial arts. It wasn't originally recorded in the flight technique. However, I heard that the ethereal steps was divided into 9 levels. I have only learned 3 levels, but I don't know the other levels. I wonder what is behind this flight technique. Then, Zhang Xiahua continued to read with great interest. After he had roughly finished reading the entire Jade Scroll, he understood. The flight technique of the Misty Mountain Villa was divided into 3 levels. They were levitation technique, wind controlling technique, and flight technique. It was a gradual process. Only by learning the first 2 levels could one finally learn the flight technique and fly freely in the air. The flight technique is divided into 3 levels. The ethereal steps is further divided into 9 levels. The first level of the flight technique is the levitation technique, which corresponds to the levitation technique and Qigong of the Misty Mountain Villa's third level. I believe the flight technique and flight technique should correspond to the wind controlling technique and the flight technique. Only, I don't know how the seniors of the Misty Mountain Villa improved it. Could it be that when the Misty Mountain Villa reaches the 9th level of the ethereal steps, one can also fly with the wind controlling technique? Zhang Xiaohua didn't believe it. If Oping could fly, he would have flown away from Misty Peak long ago. How could he be forced to commit suicide? Alas, Zhang Xiaohua did not realize that Oping did not have any hope of escaping that day. However, how could the Zhang Xiaohua understand the Oping of that day? Having obtained the flight technique, Jade Scroll, Zhang Xiaohua was very excited. That's right, back on the deserted island, he had already seen the flight technique in the fiery dragon Jinren's Jade Scroll. He also knew that when the Immortal Dao was flourishing, Immortal Dao practitioners used the flight technique to travel everywhere. Very few people used the 5 elements escape technique. Before he obtained this technique, he only knew the levitation technique, which could only be used as a lightness skill. When it came to escape techniques, he could only use the earth escape technique. In the pitch-black underground, he was like a mouse. Ever since he escaped into the mysterious cave under the mountain stream and almost lost his life, Zhang Xiaohua did not want to use the earth escape technique anymore. Unfortunately, he still did not know the flight technique and could only use the earth escape technique. Now that he had finally achieved his long-cherished wish, of course he had to make full use of the earth escape technique. As previously mentioned, the flight technique of the Misty Mountain Villa was divided into 3 levels. Each level was more difficult than the previous one. Although Zhang Xiaohua had already seen the levitation technique recorded in the Jade Scroll and had cultivated it before, the flight technique on the Jade Scroll was much more complicated than the one on the white paper. Zhang Xiaohua had no choice but to carefully ponder over it and cultivate it again. On the White Mountain Peak, in an exquisite little courtyard, Vice Hall Master Su held a short sword in his hand and played with it lovingly. Wasn't this the one that Yan Yao had reluctantly given to him? At first, Vice Hall Master Su didn't pay much attention to the short sword. He only felt that Yan Yao had dared to violate the rules of the Pill Repository Hall and arbitrarily took Zhang Xiaohua, who didn't meet the requirements, into the fragrant cult as a medicine boy. He had no choice but to teach Yang Yao a lesson. Moreover, Yang Yao had always been very close to Sage and had always been indifferent to him. Now that he finally had an opportunity, how could he not take advantage of it? At first, he didn't pay much attention to the short sword. However, after a long time, he discovered that the short sword was abnormally sharp. Even some of the divine weapons he had collected couldn't compare to it. Moreover, the style was simple, and the shape was short and small. It was just right for him to hold it in his hand. This Yan Yao, TSK, he actually collected such a good thing from the Rejuvenation Valley. Don't think that only the Hall Master can make decisions in the Pill Repository Hall. Although I can have the final say, I can also make it so that you don't have the final say. Then, there was a greedy look in his eyes as he muttered to himself. 500 taels of gold leaf. How many years has it been since I've seen it? That golden color is the most beautiful color in this time. At this moment, a disciple walked in and reported. Vice Hall Master Su, Tianmu Peak's Wuzhou Ruins sent a disciple to report again. Tianmu Peak? Wuzhou Ruins? Vice Hall Master Su was stunned. What does he want? Could it be? Vice Hall Master Su revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. Let him in quickly. Yes. The disciple was rather surprised to see Vice Hall Master Su so happy. However, when Vice Hall Master Su saw the empty-handed Tianmu Peak disciple, his expression turned ugly. He frowned inconspicuously and said in a low voice, Why did Wuzhou Ruin send you here? The disciple looked around. Seeing that there was no one else waiting, he softly told him about Zhang Xiaohua's refusal to hand over the gold leaf. Vice Hall Master Su's expression darkened even more. He slammed the table and said angrily, "What is this Wuzhou Ruins doing? I only asked him to keep an eye on him." Who asked him to speak first? He attracted attention for no reason. What an incompetent guy! Seeing Vice Hall Master Su's anger, the disciple shrunk his neck and did not dare to speak. After a while, Vice Hall Master Su looked at the disciple from the corner of his eyes and said, "What did Wuzhou Ruins say to that guy who doesn't know what's good for him? Did he mention my name?" This. The disciple was somewhat hesitant. Although what Wuzhou Ruins did was not a big deal, it was done in secret. He did not intend to let a trusted disciple like him know. However, there was no such thing as a secret in the world. Furthermore, he was Wuzhou Ruins' trusted disciple. How could he not see or hear things that he should not hear? It was fine if he knew these things, but if he said it, Wuzhou Ruins might not be happy. Seeing the disciple's hesitation, Vice Hall Master Su grinned. "Could it be that you're Wu Dalong?" The disciple hurriedly bowed and said, "Dalong has always been cautious. This matter was not handled by me, so I am not clear. However, although I did not see it with my own eyes, I more or less know a little." Thus, he told Vice Hall Master Su all that he had seen and guessed. Humph! Vice Hall Master Su was even more furious. He's just Rejuvenation Valley's son-in-law. So arrogant. He thinks that he can climb up the Hall Master and does not respect me. Haha, very good, very good. You can go back. Tell Wuzhou Ruins to just keep an eye on this guy. There's no need to alert him. I know of his loyalty. How can I do something like taking someone's things for no reason? He did very well. It's to my liking. After the disciple left, Vice Hall Master Su pulled a long face and secretly said, "Ren Xiaoyao, since you don't want face, then don't blame me for using some tricks. Hee hee. 500 taels of gold leaves are like dung in the incense-spreading cult. Only hall masters like us have some use for them. Don't you know that they are hot to the touch?" At this moment, another disciple hurried in and reported, "Vice Hall Master Su, the hall master has an urgent matter." Urgent matter? Vice Hall Master Su was stunned. Did the hall master say what it is? I don't know. However, our pill-spreading hall has never had any urgent matters. Since the hall master has said so, Vice Hall Master Su should hurry over. You go back first. I will go over immediately. After the disciple walked away, Vice Hall Master Su tidied his clothes and immediately went out. As he walked, he muttered, "Could it be that Ren Xiaoyao complained to the hall master? That's impossible." Alas, a typical case of a guilty conscience. Among the 19 peaks of the incense-spreading cult, the highest peak in the middle was the lingering fragrance peak where the inner disciples resided. At this moment, in a secluded small courtyard on the lingering fragrance peak, a beautiful woman sat cross-legged and looked out of the window. Her eyes revealed a trace of confusion. The lingering fragrance peak was taller and more majestic than the other mountain peaks. That turbulent sea of clouds and the white mist that diffused from the mountainside enveloped half of the lingering fragrance peak. The residences of the inner sect disciples were located at the mountainside. Therefore, there were pavilions and terraces, white cranes dancing in the air, and plum deers playing in the air. Coupled with the delicate boys and girls, and the mist that lingered from time to time, the entire lingering fragrance peak was practically a heavenly realm of jade. Although the woman's courtyard was not big, the vegetation was lush and several small houses were scattered in picturesque disorder. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a small pond. From time to time, golden carps would jump out of the water. Coupled with the few lotus leaves and flowers, it was quite interesting. "Peacock!" a kind voice sounded. The woman was stunned and immediately stood up in surprise. She turned around and said, "Master, you have come out. Your Mortal Heart Sutra has been completed?" The confusion in the woman's eyes disappeared and her face revealed a graceful temperament. Wasn't she the outstanding disciple of the incense-spreading cult Peacock? Following the voice, an old woman in a palace dress floated in. Her hair was white and the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes were not consistent with the delicate skin on her face. She was Peacock's master, Abbess Jingfan. Abbess Jingfan saw Peacock and was also happy. She smiled and said, "It's just a small isolated practice. How can it be as successful as you think? Mortal Heart Sutra. If Mortal Heart Sutra can be completed so easily, then how can it be called the Supreme Sutra that is most likely to connect mortals and heavenly realm?" Peacock smiled and said, "Then Master must have reached a higher level. I have only been out for a few months and Master has already gone into isolated practice. You must have achieved something. Only you have a sweet mouth." Where is Chin? Where did that crazy girl run off to?" "Master, please don't blame her. Junior sister Chin waited for a few more days and finally couldn't stand the loneliness. She just left yesterday. Who knows which uncle she went to? I will send the boys to look for her." "Haha, no need to rush, Peacock. Let me see. You have changed a lot after going out. How come? Master has already walked behind you and you still haven't noticed? Is there something on your mind?" -3. Chapter 579. "Well?" Peacock blushed. "I was distracted by some things. It's not what you were thinking." "What were you thinking about?" Nun Jingfan asked. "Master, you're teasing me again." Peacock did not fall for it. Her tone was slightly angry. "Haha!" Nun Jingfan laughed. "It's nothing, you're not young anymore. It's normal for you to have some thoughts. There's no need to hide it from me. This trip to Vow City, that's what I wanted as well. Why are you so shy?" "But..." "Master, if it's really as you said, then I'll admit it, but..." Peacock was embarrassed and confused. After all, Zhang Xiaohua was the son-in-law of the cult of fragrance. He was only a 15-year-old teenager. Seeing Peacock like this, Nun Jingfan did not press the issue. She smiled and said, "All right, if you don't want to talk about it, I won't force you. Just tell me about your trip. You haven't been to Vow Lake for decades. I wonder if there have been any changes?" "Master, it's not that I don't want to talk about it, it's just that I don't know where to start." Then I'll tell you." After that, Peacock told Nun Jingfan about her trip to Vow City and Rejuvenation Valley. Of course, what she told Nun Jingfan this time was more than what she told Nun Jingfan last time. This extra content, of course, was about Zhang Xiaohua. Nun Jingfan's reaction was similar to Nun Jingyi's. She did not interrupt Peacock in the middle of the story. She nodded and asked, "Your injuries have healed? Come, let me take a look." Peacock's heart warmed. "You're really my master." Even though Nun Jingfan expressed her concern, her first question was about the details of the ambush, and now she's talking about my injuries. Peacock obediently extended her hand. Nun Jingfan placed her finger on Peacock's wrist. She channeled a strand of inner energy into her, circling around her meridians for a while before withdrawing. Nun Jingfan smiled with satisfaction. "Not bad. Your inner cultivation has improved in these few months. You haven't slacked off." Peacock lowered her head. "I dare not. Master has always taught me that cultivation is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you'll fall behind. I dare not disobey." "Haha, very good. That minor meridian nourishing pill is really miraculous. The injuries in your meridians have been completely healed, and it has even expanded slightly. It's greatly beneficial to your future cultivation. Compared to this, those few years of cultivation that you obtain for free are nothing." "Ah? What?" "Master, this disciple thought that obtaining 7 years' worth of cultivation was already enough. Who would have thought that this minor meridian nourishing pill would have such an effect? Then wouldn't the real pulse soothing pill be even more miraculous?" Peacock was very surprised. "Sigh, the exact effects of the real meridian soothing pill are unknown even in the sex records. Who knows what it will be like? Moreover, just this minor meridian nourishing pill is about to go extinct. What a pity. By the way, you said that when you saw this child, you felt like heaven and earth were filling up. That's strange. Even though I didn't make much progress during this seclusion, but I did make some small progress. I managed to catch a glimpse of the realm of immortality, And at the same time, I also saw a corner of the heavenly axiom. Even though it was just a glimpse, but that brief moment was enough to shock me. In front of the immortal heavenly axiom, I'm like an ant. I'm even smaller than an ant. This feeling is very similar to what you encountered. Oh, Master, congratulations, Master. You actually managed to catch a glimpse of the heavenly axiom. Could it be that our Mortal Heart Sutra is real? Nonsense! The Abbess Jingfan scolded Peacock. Of course the Mortal Heart Sutra is real. It's the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors. How could it be fake? But, Peacock argued, the realms in the Heart Sutra are too mystical. In the end, it's all unimaginable martial arts. The Abbess Jingfan smiled. Am I not walking forward step by step? Do you still have any doubts? I don't dare to have any more doubts. Peacock lowered her head in shame. It's not just you. When I was your age, I was the same. I was young and frivolous. The Abbess Jingfan now was like a loving mother. She then asked, Did Chen Chen see that kid? How did she feel? Peacock shook her head. I purposely let Junior Chen see it, but I didn't tell her beforehand. But looking at Junior Chen's face, she didn't feel anything strange and… Peacock hesitated. And I only felt this when I saw him for the first time. When I saw him again, I didn't feel this kind of feeling. Towards the end, her voice was almost inaudible. The Abbess Jingfan was stunned. She thought for a moment and asked softly, Who else did you tell about this? Chen Chen? Or the leader? Peacock was stunned and said shyly, Master, what are you talking about? What's there to talk about? This is the first time I told you. That's good. Abbess Jingfan nodded and then said seriously, Peacock, although the inner disciples of the fragrant cult are not allowed to marry, but if you want to develop in the cult, for example, to sit in my position, then you must keep your chastity. The reason why I let you go out this time is to let you see the real Jianghu, then I'll tell you all this later. Who would have thought that you would meet your so-called nemesis in just a few months? Nemesis? Peacock was shocked. Master, you're saying that this Ren Xiaoyao actually… The Abbess Jingfan nodded. I don't have any experience in this area, but from what you said, it seems to be the same as when your senior Ru Ping met O Ping from the Misty School. Back then, your master Jingyi came to me a few times, and I remember it very well. Senior Ru Ping? Peacock was even more surprised. You mean Yang Ru Ping from the Misty School, right? That's right. Sighed this child. She went to the Sorrowless Lake and met her nemesis. She couldn't forget him after returning to Lingering Fragrance Peak. Just like what you said, she only had Oping in her heart. Without Oping, the world would collapse. Your senior Ru Ping couldn't stand him, so she reluctantly agreed. Although Oping did not disappoint and became the leader of the Misty School, but it's fate that makes fools of people, love hurts. The Abbess Jingfan sighed again and again. She then looked at Peacock lovingly. Peacock, your potential has long surpassed Ru Ping's, your future is limitless. I hope you can consider it carefully and don't. Before she could finish, Peacock hurriedly said, Master, look at what you're saying. I feel like what you said, it's not quite the same as what Senior Ru Ping said. That's right, Yang Ru Ping and O Ping fell in love at first sight, both of them willing. Yang Ru Ping's love for O Ping was unforgettable, but what about Peacock? She really didn't know if she had such feelings for a 15-year-old. Rejuvenation Valley's future son-in-law. And her master had already pinned such a big label on her. Of course she was anxious. The Abbess Jingfan looked at Peacock as if she was her own beloved daughter, and stopped Peacock from arguing. Peacock, don't be hasty. I'm saying this for your own good, but it's just my own wishful thinking. I'm not an inflexible person. Your senior Ru Ping was able to let go of Ru Ping years ago. How can I not? To be honest, I was the one who advised your senior Ru Ping. How can I not understand these things now? But this Ren what? Ren Xiaoyao, Peacock said exasperatedly. Ren Xiaoyao, he's no better than O Ping. He's just a normal disciple of the Pill Expanding Hall, The difference between you and him is too big, and his martial arts is terrible. I don't think he's a good match for you. Master. Peacock was speechless. This was just the beginning, and she was already talking about this. The Abbess Jing Fan ignored her and continued. Of course, Peacock, if you really like him, it doesn't matter if he's Rejuvenation Valley's future son-in-law. You didn't have to go through the ceremony, and you don't have to care if he's just a normal disciple. I'll make the decision for you. Master. Peacock was very touched. She held the Abbess Jing Fan's hand and said, It's just. Master, thank you for your concern, but it doesn't seem like what you think. How is it not what I think? I've eaten more salt than you've eaten rice. How can I not know? The Abbess Jing Fan was very sure. Peacock was even more anxious. Master, I really. Forget it, I'll send someone to call Ren Xiaoyao over tomorrow. You can see for yourself. Peacock was a little peeved. All right, the Abbess Jing Fan smiled. I'm also curious to see what kind of person this Ren Xiaoyao is, to be able to coax the daughter of Rejuvenation Valley, and even our proud Peacock. Oh, forget it. The Abbess Jing Fan seemed to have thought of something. Let's talk about this later. Ever since your marshal and Jing Xian mysteriously passed away, our lingering fragrance peak has been in a state of panic and suspicion. Adding your incident out of the blue, and involving someone outside of the sect, it's inevitable that it'll attract other people's attention. It won't do any good to you, Ren Xiaoyao, Toa Dan Hall, or Rejuvenation Valley. Let's talk about this in a few years. The kid is still young anyway. Let's just keep him for now. What the? Peacock almost fell over. This was a human, not a fish. But speaking of the deceased marshal and Jing Xian, Peacock's face was filled with sadness. Yes, Master, Marshal Aunt Jing Xian's martial arts were higher than yours. Why did she pass away so mysteriously? She didn't take in any disciples. Oh, right, Master. It seems that the girls Marshal Aunt Jing Xian brought back from the outside have been accepted into the inner sect? The Abbess Jing Fan sighed. Yes, when your martial aunt passed away, her face was very peaceful, as if she knew who did it, but she didn't say anything. Sigh, it's because of this that lingering fragrance peak is filled with suspicion. The girls she brought back from the outside aren't very talented. Your martial aunt didn't manage to take them in when she was alive. It's even more difficult after her death. -3. Chapter 580. I know about this. Peacock nodded. I haven't seen that child before, but I heard that she was very stubborn. After Marshal Aunt Jing Xian passed away, there was no one to take charge of Xian Bamboo Yard. That child might not have been taken in as Marshal Aunt Jing Xian's disciple. There weren't many servants in Xian Bamboo Yard, but they all rolled their eyes at that child. Sigh, I heard from Qingchen that even Marshal Aunt Jing Xian knew about this. But that child just clenched her teeth and didn't say anything. She just stood by Marshal Aunt Jing Xian's coffin for 7 days and 7 nights. She's still a child? Nun Jingfan said. That little girl is already 16. She's only a few years younger than you. Haha, you're right, but the first time I saw her was 4 or 5 years ago. She was still a little girl. In the blink of an eye, she's already 16. Time flies. Hearing the disappointment in Peacock's voice, Nun Jingfan nodded in her heart. The inner disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak were all blessed by the heavens. They had always stayed away from the mortal world and didn't have much contact with worldly affairs. Although they could improve their martial arts, once they reached a certain level, they would fall into a bottleneck. Without experiencing the fickleness of the world and the ways of the world, they wouldn't be able to enter a more profound realm. This bottleneck had stopped countless geniuses in the past thousands of years. As Abbess Jingfan's prized disciple, Peacock could be considered one of the top figures in Lingering Fragrance Peak. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been the one responsible for this trip to Carefree City. Today, to be able to express the sentiment of "time is like lightning" to a girl whom she had not interacted much with, it already showed that she had some understanding of the true meaning of life. Whether it was successful or not, her relationship with the so-called nemesis of life would be greatly beneficial for Peacock's cultivation. Ren Xiaoyao, in Nun Jingfan's eyes, was just a whetstone for Peacock's mortal mantra. Immediately after, Jing Fan Shirtai smiled and said, "Let's not talk about that girl. Since she has already entered the inner sect, even if she doesn't have your martial uncle Jing Xian's personal guidance, she may not have the opportunity to improve her martial arts, but with her status, on this lingering fragrance peak, no one will bully her." Peacock also nodded slightly. While they were talking, there was a rush of footsteps. Abbess Jing Fan did not need to turn around to know who it was. Sure enough, there was a cry of surprise. "Master, you've come out? Was it not Chen Chen's voice?" Abbess Jing Fan stopped talking to Peacock. She turned around and said, "Sai, that's right. I just came out, but I only see one disciple here, Master." Chin Chin used her Qing Gong and came to Master Jingfen's side. She said in a sweet voice, "From what you're saying, it seems that I don't care about you at all. I'm just a little bored and went to Master Qingling's place to take a look. If you don't believe me, you can ask senior sister. I've been waiting here for a long time." After she finished speaking, she grabbed Master Jingfen's arm and shook it. She did not have the kind of temperament that Zhang Xiaohua had when they first met. Master Jingfan was also used to this kind of coquettish behavior. She said with a helpless face, "I haven't finished my sentence, and you're already waiting for me to say so much. What else do you want me to say?" Although her face was helpless, her eyes were also filled with doting. She had watched her two disciples grow up since they were young. She had never been separated from them for so long. Although she knew that there was nothing wrong with her little disciple, she still looked at her face and carefully observed her growth in the past few months. "Look at what you're saying." Chin Chin chuckled and said, "I don't dare to talk back to Master. One sentence from Master is worth 10,000 sentences. Oh, right, I forgot to congratulate Master. Congratulations, Master, your Mortal Heart Sutra must have reached the peak of perfection. You've created a new situation that hasn't been seen in 10,000 years in the fragrance cult." "Little talker." Abbess Jing Fan scolded and said, "Master only went into a small retreat. How can it reach the peak of perfection like you said? You're used to being flattered outside. Are you trying to fool me when you come back?" Although it was a scolding, there was a slight pride in Abbess Jing Fan's eyes. Chin Chin raised her eyes and looked at Peacock, who was looking at her calmly. She smiled and said, "Senior sister just returned to Lingxiang Peak and her power has increased greatly. Master's retreat for several months must have also improved greatly. This is needless to say." "This? What kind of logic is this?" Abbess Jing Fan smiled bitterly and then said, "Is it because you're jealous of your senior sister's opportunity?" Chin Chin pursed her lips and said, "That's right. Master, please be the judge. Senior sister went to Don't Worry City and encountered many stories along the way. She was even intercepted. Although she was injured, the minor nourishing meridian pill had replenished her strength for at least 5 years. Look at your disciple. I went to that godforsaken place, and there was nothing interesting along the way." Before Chin Chin finished speaking, Abbess Jing Fan shook her head and said, "Don't say any more. Chin Chin, have you forgotten what your sect master said before? In addition to hard work, the path of cultivation also emphasizes on aptitude and opportunity. If the opportunity is not there, no matter how hard you work, no matter how good your aptitude is, it will not be enough." Chin Chin thought about it and said, "Master, so senior sister went to Don't Worry City and encountered the Tenria sex obstruction. Then she was seriously injured and got the elixir to increase her power. This is her opportunity." Abbess Jing Fan nodded seriously and said, "Yes, it is." Chen Chen rolled his eyes and said, "Then Ren Xiaoyao from the Rejuvenation Valley met Nye Qianyu and sent her to the Rejuvenation Valley. Then they held a martial arts competition to find a spouse. Then he came to the fragrance cult with the medicine boy and became an outer disciple of the fragrance cult. Is that also his opportunity?" Hearing Chen Chen mention Zhang Xiaohua, Abbess Jing Fan frowned slightly and said, "I just heard your senior sister mention this Ren Xiaoyao. Why do you suddenly mention him? Do you feel that he is different from ordinary people?" "Different from ordinary people?" Chen Chen was stunned and said confusedly, "No. I just feel that he is tall and there is nothing strange about it. Don't we also have a lot of young inner sect disciples who look very mature? Compared to them, this Ren Xiaoyao is too ordinary. Jing Fan Nun frowned slightly and said, You're right. If Ren Xiaoyao hadn't met the daughter of the Rejuvenation Valley's Valley Master and reached out to save her, this wouldn't have happened. He definitely wouldn't have had the opportunity to enter our fragrant religion. This is the so-called opportunity. Alas! Qin Qin sighed deeply and looked at Peacock deeply. Abbess Jing Fan's heart trembled and she quickly asked, What's wrong? Unexpectedly, Qin Qin said bitterly, Your disciple's martial arts cultivation can't catch up with senior sisters. Now, I can't even see her back. How can your disciple not sigh? You! Abbess Jing Fan did not know whether to laugh or cry, but she was relieved. Peacock went out and provoked this unknown Ren Xiaoyao. If Qin Qin was also involved with them, then it would be even more chaotic. It was fine as long as it was not these. At this time, Peacock, who had been silent all this time, smiled and said, Junior sister is wrong. Didn't the head of the sect always say that the most important thing in the path of cultivation is to take one step at a time? Only what you can achieve through cultivation is your true power. All shortcuts are not the right path. The power I have gained these few years is not necessarily a blessing or a curse. Qin Qin did not agree and said, Even so, seeing senior sister gain so many years of power for free, how can I not be envious? Moreover, since it is not a blessing to gain power for free, why do so many disciples break their heads every time to obtain the right to enter the Valley Orchid Evening Refining? Isn't it because they want to find rare treasures and refine them into elixirs to increase their power? Speaking of this, she seemed to have realized something and slapped her forehead and said, Oh, Master, I am happy to see you, but I forgot. Abbess Jing Fan was stunned and asked with a smile, What's wrong? Do you want to ask Master for the chance to enter the Valley Orchid Evening Refining? Speaking of this, she turned to look at Peacock and said, Your senior sister gained so many years of power for free, and when she went to Don't Worry City, her state of mind was not stable. She can't go to the Valley Orchid Evening Refining in a few months. She needs to stabilize her state of mind first, and untie the knot in her heart. Moreover, she has already been there last time, she will not fight with you. Unstable state of mind? Not in her heart. Qin Qin was confused and asked Peacock, Senior sister, what is going on? Why didn't I hear you mention it? Could it be that Dao Gang is sad? Peacock blushed and mumbled, not knowing how to explain. Then Qin Qin said loudly, Oh, Master, you are interrupting again, listen to me first. After that, without waiting for Abbess Jing Fan and Peacock's reaction, he continued, Just now when I went to Master's Aunt Qingling's place, I met Master's uncle who sent someone to find her. He said that the disciples who were patrolling the mountain found that the prohibition of the Valley Orchid Evening Refining had loosened, similar to the initial opening of the Valley Orchid Evening Refining, so he gathered all the elders and hall masters to discuss. Because Master is in seclusion, he did not send anyone. Before Master left, she told me to come back, and if Master is able to come out in the near future, I would like to invite Master to Lingxiang Palace to discuss the matter of the Valley Orchid Evening Refining. Qin Qin said all this in one breath and did not breathe in the middle. Fortunately, he had some success in the Mortal Heart Sutra, so he was not out of breath and his face was not red. After she finished, he did not speak again. Abbess Jing Fan and Peacock also did not speak. For a moment, the whole room was unusually quiet. Qin Qin looked at the two of them and said curiously, Master, senior sister, I am done. When Peacock heard this, she smiled and said, Haha, so junior sister is done. Then we can talk. Haha. Qin Qin laughed and said, Of course. Abbess Jing Fan also smiled and said, Then we will talk. Then, he looked at Peacock and frowned slightly and said, The Valley Orchid Evening Refining opens every 5 years and the prohibition has been fixed for hundreds of years. There are still a few more months before it opens. Could it be that there have been new changes like the prohibition at Jinghai Lake? -3. Chapter 581. Although the twilight orchid refinement is not as grand as the refining of lingering fragrance, it is still held once every 5 years. If there is a chance, it is still good to go in and experience it. Hearing this, Chen Qun could not help but look eager to give it a try. Peacock's face was expressionless, but there was obvious envy in her eyes. She said gloomily, "The refining of lingering fragrance is held every year, it is nothing new. This time, the disciples have been talking about the twilight orchid refinement for a long time. I want to go in and take a look." When Chen Qun heard this, he shouted, "Senior sister, don't fight with me. You've gotten so many benefits for no reason. Moreover, you've gotten an excellent ranking in the refining of lingering fragrance every year. The headmaster has praised you a lot and gave you a lot of medicinal pills and cultivation methods." Peacock said unhappily, "The elixirs are useful, but didn't I show you the skills too? You also practice a lot." "Hee, who asked us to be senior sister? If you don't let me see it, who else can see it?" Chen Qun blinked his eyes and said shamelessly, Forget it. Master didn't ask me to go anyway, what are you afraid of? I won't fight with you. Although the twilight orchid refinement is not too dangerous, there are still many wild beasts inside. There are also many long-lived wild beasts. Although I didn't encounter any wild beasts the last time I went in, it doesn't mean that there are no problems inside. You have to be careful. If others are not afraid, why should I be? It's just a wild beast. Don't you think so, Master? Master Jingfan shook her head. Chen Qun, don't be careless. The wild beasts in the valley are not like the ones you usually see. Not only are there many types, but they are also very fierce. Many of the wild beasts inside have lived for who knows how many years and are human-like. Every time the twilight orchid refinement, there are many casualties. Chen Qun said disdainfully. They are all outer disciples and disciples of other halls. How many inner disciples are injured? Seeing that Chen Qun did not mind, Nun Jingfan did not say much. In the eyes of the inner disciples, twilight orchid refinement was a simple experience. The fragrant religion was not the same as other sects in Jianghu. They had an immortal array to protect their foundation. Of course, with this array, there were gains and losses. The gains were needless to say. The array had protected the fragrant religion for 10,000 years. But what about the losses? It was also obvious that the inner sect disciples did not have enough experience roaming the Jianghu. Although roaming the Jianghu every 4 years was an opportunity, not every disciple had the opportunity to do so. Therefore, the Orchid Valley that was open every 5 years was also a place for them to gain experience. Roaming the Jianghu might allow them to gain experience in the ways of the world. As for twilight orchid refinement, it could only be used to gain experience in martial arts and survive in the wild. As for comparing notes in martial arts, it was better to mention the twilight orchid refinement. This was a grand event that the fragrant religion held every year to assess the martial arts of the inner and outer disciples. The winners would receive corresponding rewards and promotion. This was what Nun Jingfan should be worried about. Seeing that her master did not say anything more, Peacock smiled and said, Master, since you have already come out of seclusion, the head of the sect must be concerned. There may be many things that need to be discussed in this Orchid Valley. You should also be going to the Palace of Fragrant Religion. If you delay the sect's important matters because of this disciple, we can't afford to take responsibility. Ha! Nun Jingfan laughed and shook her head. She stood up and said, Master hasn't seen you for several months and wanted to talk more with you. Looking at you, Sai, as the saying goes, the son has grown up and can't be controlled by his mother. It's really not bad. Peacock said shyly. Master, this disciple just saw that you weren't in a hurry to go to the Palace of Fragrant Religion and kindly reminded you. What do you mean by that? Chen Qun did not let go of the arm that was hugging Nun Jingfan and said, That's right, Master. Then why don't you stay a little longer? Nun Jingfan pulled her arm away and said, Seeing that you are safe and sound, Master is relieved. The sect's matters are not big or small, they all need to be taken seriously. Since I have already come out of seclusion, I naturally need to participate. Although it's a little late, I still have to go. Peacock, go back to the quiet room to stabilize your state. Chin, make some preparations. The prohibition of Orchid Valley has loosened, we may be entering the valley soon. Seeing that their master was speaking seriously, the two of them did not dare to delay. They both stood still and solemnly said yes. After Nun Jingfan left, Chin pulled Peacock again and asked curiously, Senior, what did Master say to you when she came out of seclusion? Why did Master have such a big reaction when I mentioned that Ren Xiaoyao? She gave me a fright just now. Peacock shook her head as if nothing had happened. How would I know the reason? When you came back, Master had just come out of seclusion. I had just finished talking about the matter of going to Carefree City and Master had just seen my injuries. Eh? That's strange. Chin was even more puzzled. He raised his head and asked, Oh right, Senior, it's been more than 10 days since we came back to Incense Order. I wonder how that Ren Xiaoyao is doing? Is he like the other disciples of Pill Digging Hall, planting herbs in a daze? Pfft. Hearing this, Peacock could not help but laugh and said, How come I've never seen him in a daze? If he's really like that, what's so fun about him? Why are you still thinking about him? Speaking of this, she felt guilty for no reason. Chin did not care at all and said, This kid's looks are average and his martial arts are poor. However, he's not short and doesn't seem to have any strong points. But his eloquence is not bad. When there's time, why don't we drag him to Lingxiang Peak and tell him stories to us? Peacock was speechless and scolded. Do you think Lingxiang Peak is easy? He's just a little medicine boy of Pill Digging Hall. How can he come to Lingxiang Peak? And tell you stories? I'm just saying. Chin stuck out his tongue. Then, he turned to look out of the window and stretched, saying, The days at Lingxiang Peak are really boring. If only we could be like Ren Xiaoyao said, how good would it be to be able to get rid of evil in the Jianghu? Peacock shook her head and said, If that kind of life is good, why would Ren Xiaoyao need to painstakingly design and join our incense order? All right, let's not talk about it anymore. You should also prepare. I'm going to the quiet room to practice. Sigh, those who prepare, those who practice in seclusion, those who are bored continue to be bored. Chin muttered. Those who are farming are still farming. Peacock, who was walking past, felt her heart skip a beat and thought, Farming? Isn't that Ren Xiaoyao? Why did Chin mention this for no reason? Could it be? Then, she felt a chill in her heart. Could it be that Chin also has feelings for this Ren Xiaoyao? No way, didn't Master say that he's my nemesis? Peacock's face heated up as she thought. Could it be that what Master said was true? I actually have feelings for a young man I've never met. But this doesn't seem to be the feeling described in the book, this. What should I do? Sigh, not to mention Peacock's chaotic thoughts and Chin muttering. Just the fact that Zhang Xiaohua, who was comprehending the Imperial Wind technique on Tianmu Peak, was sneezing nonstop. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua had already finished comprehending the levitation technique. He had also patched up the previous incomplete version of the levitation technique and started cultivating again. Although the levitation technique and the ethereal steps that Zhang Qinghua had given to Zhang Xiaohua a few years ago was lacking, the main framework was still there. It was just that when he was recording it, many details were omitted. Many things that were not easy to record with pen and ink were omitted. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua was revising the general cultivation and could easily do it. Therefore, it did not take long for him to start comprehending and practicing the Imperial Wind technique. Misty School's flight technique was divided into 3 steps. The first step was the levitation technique, which was to lift the body off the ground and float in the air, using external objects to move. This was exactly what martial arts Qigong could mimic. The second step was to float in the air without using any external objects. Instead, he controlled the wind outside to move his body. Of course, the third step was to be able to fly in the air. This was not something Zhang Xiaohua could do. What he had comprehended now was how to control the wind. Speaking of controlling the wind, during the era of immortality, it was not too difficult. It was one of the most basic abilities of all immortal cultivators. At this time, on Tianmu Peak, although the vitality of heaven and earth was much more than outside, the amount that Zhang Xiaohua could use was very little. Moreover, without the guidance of a master, Zhang Xiaohua was still scratching his head when it came to something as abstract as controlling the wind. Look, under the night sky, in the forest, a crooked figure almost left the tree branch and tried to control the wind, but in a moment of carelessness, he fell with a plop. Sigh, why can't I stay in the air for a long time? Zhang Xiaohua patted the dirt off his butt as he scratched his head. It was not that he could not stabilize his body, but the technique to stabilize his body was recorded in the ethereal steps. He only wanted to abandon martial arts and only use the immortal Tao. Naturally, he did not want to use it. Standing up from the ground, Zhang Xiaohua looked at the full moon in the sky. It was already late. Casting a spell, he entered the ground and went straight to the alchemy room. In the alchemy room, the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace was already placed on the platform. The earth fire was also burning slightly. No herbs were added into the furnace, only to warm it up. Ever since the great guardian deity Zhou Shuming's visit, there were no more irrelevant visitors to Tianmu Peak. Zhang Xiaohua's farming life finally entered a peaceful state. After cultivating the levitation technique, Zhang Xiaohua once again had the idea of refining pills. And that's right. Weren't the herbs he obtained from the gambling arena used to refine pills? While alchemy, he could also cultivate. Naturally, he had to take care of both. The 8 trigrams purple gold furnace was an alchemy furnace that could refine high-level pills. The way it was used was different from the alchemy furnace Zhang Xiaohua had used before. Early in the afternoon, Zhang Xiaohua raised the earth fire and slowly warmed up the alchemy furnace. Once the time was right, he would add the herbs into the furnace to refine the pills. This time, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to refine the pill formula that he had obtained long ago, the bone-solidifying pill. Although Zhang Xiaohua had never seen the bone-solidifying pill before, he had seen the small bone-solidifying pill a few times. Those imitations of the incense cult's alchemists could cause the cult's disciples to drool. Presumably, the real bone-solidifying pill would be even more precious. Since Zhang Xiaohua wanted to use the pills to practice, this never-before-refined pill was suitable. -3. Chapter 582. Chu Zhigao thanked Zhang Xiaohua and gave Zhang Xiaohua the pill formulas that he didn't understand. There were a few pill formulas among them, but the bone-solidifying pill was recorded at the very front. Moreover, the herbs used in these pill formulas couldn't be found in the past, even if Zhang Xiaohua was in Rejuvenation Valley. But now, she was teaching the incense cult, and in the pill expanding hall. This was a place where the great sects of immortal Tao inheritances grew medicinal herbs. Other cultivation methods might have been lost, but there was never a lack of medicinal herbs used for pill refinement. Perhaps some medicinal herbs' medicinal properties were unknown, and even the pill formulas could be lost. But it was undeniable that many ancient medicinal herbs were collected by different disciples, even if they didn't know the names of these medicinal herbs. Perhaps only Zhang Xiaohua's foolish behavior of exchanging medicinal herbs for medicinal pills could make them cover their mouths and laugh secretly while throwing out nameless and worthless medicinal herbs. At least, the medicinal herbs that Zhang Xiaohua used to refine the bone-solidifying pill could be found in the thousands of jade boxes. Yes, she forgot. The 3 main ingredients used in pill refinement, iron bone grass, fragrant soulwood, and black wood fruit, were also found in other jade boxes. They just weren't as old as the 3 ingredients that Chenfeng Xiao, Bai Huan, and the others gave to Zhang Xiaohua. Glancing at the warm pill furnace, Zhang Xiaohua once again probed her divine sense into the furnace. On the inner wall of the pill furnace, there were instructions on how to use it and refine it. There were also simple instructions on pill refinement. These instructions were for the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. Usually, only 1 furnace mouth was used for pill refinement, but this pill furnace had 8. Of course, it had to be explained clearly. Zhang Xiaohua looked at it for a long time and gradually understood. The 8 furnace mouths of the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace were called Kun, Jin, Li, Dui, Qian, Sun, Zhen, and Qian. Moreover, the medicinal herbs also corresponded to these 8 attributes. It was actually similar to Zhang Xiaohua's 5 elements division. According to the instructions of the medicinal herbs in the pill furnace, Zhang Xiaohua also roughly understood that Qian and Dui should correspond to gold, Jin, and Sun should correspond to wood, Kun, and Zhen should correspond to earth, Qian was water, and Li was fire. Looking at the medicinal herbs' 5 elements division, it was not a whim. Early in the ancient times, there were ancestors who discovered and classified them. It was just that I did not receive the inheritance. This 8 trigrams division, presumably, is also a branch of it. Zhang Xiaohua secretly pondered, slowly entering into the routine homework at night. In fact, thinking about it, it was normal. In the ancient times, immortals flourished and affected all things in the mortal world. Although Zhang Xiaohua learned the 5 elements division from Qi Huang was a branch of alchemy. If there were no traces of predecessors, then it would be strange. When she woke up the next day, Zhang Xiaohua finished her work in the medicine field and went to a remote place in the medicine field. This was the place where she secretly watered the spring water that contained vitality. Releasing her divine sense, she carefully observed the seeds on the ground. These seeds that Zhang Xiaohua specially watered contained far more vitality than others. However, these seeds still did not have any movement. While she was looking, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly frowned. She looked back with her divine sense. 10 feet away, behind a big tree, Zhou Shuming, who had disappeared for a few days, quietly appeared there again. Alas, he's really like a fly, staring at me makes me feel uncomfortable. Zhang Xiaohua secretly shook her head and then left the medicine field. At this time, another blatant fly also stuck out its head and shouted, "Junior brother Ren, good morning." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and waved her hand. "Senior brother Bai, good morning too. Today is half an hour earlier than usual." Bai Huan laughed and said, "I just woke up because I wanted to pee. When the sun comes out later, I still need to take a nap. I'm going to faint." Zhang Xiaohua almost fell down. She quickly said, "Senior brother Bai, you can go to the bathroom yourself. I also need to go back to sleep." After returning to the cave, Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment, and did not dare to be careless. She set up a restriction at the entrance of the cave, and then escaped into the alchemy room. At this time, the alchemy room was already steaming hot. Although the alchemy furnace was not being refined, Zhang Xiaohua did not use any incantation to restrict the energy of the earth fire, so it was stuffy. On the white jade table, there were more than 10 jade boxes. They were the herbs that Zhang Xiaohua had picked out earlier to refine the bone solidifying pill. Looking at the alchemy furnace that had been warmed, Zhang Xiaohua took out a cattail hassock and threw it in front of the furnace. Then she sat cross-legged and regulated the vital energy in her body. The bone solidifying pill was the same as the meridian nourishing pill, but it was a low-level pill. Zhang Xiaohua was basically confident. However, this was the first time she used the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace, so she had to be careful. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua let out a light breath. She made an incantation with both hands and hit the earth fire and the alchemy furnace. With a soft sound, the alchemy furnace seemed to have shrunk a little, and the burning earth fire seemed to have become fiercer. However, because of the incantation, the temperature in the alchemy room gradually dropped. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua made an incantation with her left hand and pointed her index finger at the mouth of the Qian furnace. The sealed mouth of the furnace rotated and silently opened, revealing the array within. At this moment, there was no light red, true samadhi fire within the array. After all, it was only a low-level pill and did not require the refinement of true fire. When the furnace opened, Zhang Xiaohua did not hesitate. She waved her right hand and a jade box appeared on the table, revealing the 40-year-old iron bone grass. Then, under Zhang Xiaohua's control, the iron bone grass flew into the furnace. Once the iron bone grass was thrown in, a cloud of ash immediately flew up and turned into a ball of boiling medicinal liquid. Zhang Xiaohua carefully observed with her divine sense. Only when she did not find anything strange did she relax. She continued to incantation with the incantation and pointed her left index finger again. The mouth of the furnace rotated and closed. The metal attribute, iron bone grass, was slowly refined in the furnace. After that, with the experience of the first time, Zhang Xiaohua unhurriedly threw the water attribute, fragrant soulwood, and the wood attribute, blackwood fruit, into the furnace and the vibration furnace, respectively. Then, according to her own understanding, she threw the other 10 ingredients into the different alchemy furnaces. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua's understanding of the 5 elements of the herbs was just at the beginning stage. She did not have a complete understanding of the attributes of the herbs and could only roughly divide them. Of course, if she divided them correctly, it would naturally be beneficial to the refinement of the herbs. Even if she divided them incorrectly, there would be no fatal consequences. It was precisely because of this that Zhang Xiaohua was at ease and dared to try it out. The 8 trigrams purple gold furnace had this kind of advantage. It could separate the different attributes of the herbs into different formations to refine their essences. If it was used in the previous alchemy furnaces, it would have to be refined separately. Obviously, it could save a large amount of time. When refining low-level and basic alchemy pills, there might not be any advantages. Only when refining high-level alchemy pills in the future, where the refinement of the herbs required a long time, would the benefits of this 8 trigrams purple gold furnace could be seen. After waiting for the various herbs to be thrown into the alchemy furnace, Zhang Xiaohua clapped her hands and immersed her divine sense into the alchemy furnace. Using the previous method of controlling the alchemy furnace, she carefully looked at the various medicinal liquids. Only when she felt that everything was normal did she withdraw her divine sense. Although the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace could refine high-level alchemy pills, the time needed to refine the impurities couldn't be reduced. Zhang Xiaohua could only carry out the next step of liquefying and producing the alchemy pills tomorrow. Sitting cross-legged in front of the alchemy furnace, Zhang Xiaohua first closed her eyes to comprehend the heavenly Tao for a while. When it was about noon, she put away the praying mat and practiced the imperial wind technique in the alchemy room. Fortunately, the alchemy room was quite large. Although the alchemy furnace in the center was huge, the other places were enough for Zhang Xiaohua to move around freely. After practicing for a long time, Zhang Xiaohua gradually gained some insights. The imperial wind technique, described in the jade slip, roughly described how to use the jinqi in the body to communicate with the vitality between heaven and earth, and then control the cool breeze. However, there was still an old problem. The vitality in the alchemy room was lacking. Just using jinqi to communicate with the vitality between heaven and earth was impossible, so how could she control the cool breeze? Zhang Xiaohua stood there thinking for a long time. This problem existed in all of her magic cultivation. Even the newly refined dragon binding ring was the same. She had jinqi in her body, but this jinqi wasn't endless. Even if she wholeheartedly cultivated and grew a little every day, in comparison to the amount of vitality needed to use magic, it was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It wasn't of any help at all. But what could Zhang Xiaohua do? He could only rely on the crouching ox stone in the money pouch. Only by absorbing the vitality in the stone could she use these immortal magic. The levitation technique was the foundation of the flying technique. It didn't use a lot of vitality between heaven and earth. Even so, Zhang Xiaohua could only use the levitation technique in the past. He didn't have a high altitude from the ground. Only later on, when his level of qi cultivation was high, could he barely use the levitation technique. Of course, his levitation technique was mostly imitating the qigong of other martial arts masters. He used the ethereal steps technique to reduce the consumption of vitality between heaven and earth. Finding the root of the problem, Zhang Xiuhua's mouth revealed a self-deprecating smile. People of the immortal path pay attention to communicating with heaven and earth. I, on the other hand, can't obtain any benefits from heaven and earth. I can only rely on myself to use my Jinqi to use magic. It seems that in this world, only martial arts is the true protagonist. Although she had such thoughts in her heart, the absolute power of the spell also moved Zhang Xiuhua. How could she settle for the next best thing? Luckily, when Zhang Xiuhua was practicing the levitation technique previously, she already had some shallow experience. Now, it could be used as a reference. Following that, after an afternoon of practice, she was finally able to float and ride the wind a little. Just that, the way Zhang Xiuhua was waving her hands and legs, it was as if she wanted to step on something. Sigh, a habit formed over several years is not something that can be changed in a short period of time. Perhaps only when I truly become a Qi practitioner in the future will I be able to fly with the wind. Just as Zhang Xiuhua was flying crookedly in the air, she suddenly had a thought. She made a hand seal and immediately returned to the cave. She heard someone shouting outside. Junior Brother Ren, Junior Brother Ren. -3. Chapter 583. At this time, the sun was already setting. Zhang Xiuhua's cave was facing the southeast, so it was already dark. Without releasing his divine sense, Zhang Xiuhua could tell that the person calling him outside the cave was Senior Brother Baihuan. Zhang Xiuhua was very surprised. Usually, Baihuan would only call him in the morning when there was something important. He rarely came in the afternoon. Not to mention that there was nothing important, Baihuan was lazy. At this time, he was most likely in a daze under the tree, waiting for his big dream at night. Zhang Xiuhua rubbed his eyes and walked out of the cave with an impatient face. He asked, Senior Brother Bai, it's already late. Is there anything in the medicinal field? Although Baihuan was senior brother, and had been at Tianmu Peak for a long time, he was much older than Zhang Xiuhua. However, Baihuan's expression at this time was as if Zhang Xiuhua was his senior brother. He guessed Zhang Xiuhua's thoughts and smiled apologetically. Junior Brother Ren, if there's nothing important, how would I dare to disturb your rest? When did I come here usually? Zhang Xiuhua cupped his hands and said, From what Senior Brother Bai said, it seems that I don't welcome you. I just think that it's already late. What can happen in the medicinal field? Baihuan looked around and moved closer to her. She said mysteriously, How is this about the herbal field? Only the gods know when those bare seeds will germinate. I came to find Junior Brother Ren because I have something important to tell you. Seeing Baihuan's expression, Zhang Xiuhua was amused and asked tactfully, Oh, then I'm all ears. I've been at Tianmu Peak for a long time and haven't encountered anything important. Baihuan was very satisfied and said, Just now, Head Manager Chen sent someone to deliver a letter. He said that Tianmu Peak is hosting an important guest tonight. Well, Head Manager Chen specially said that it's the person you want to see, so I specially. Before Baihuan could finish her words, Zhang Xiuhua's heart skipped a beat. His voice trembled a little as he said anxiously, What? The person I want to see the most? My second. Before she could finish the word brother, she felt that something was wrong. She had never told Chen Fengxiao the real reason why she came to preach the incense order. Even Yang Yao didn't know. How could he find her second brother? Moreover, Chen Fengxiao was just a small steward of Tianmu Peak's Pill Expansion Hall. How could he have such great abilities? Therefore, Zhang Xiuhua immediately shut her mouth and swallowed the rest of her words. Seeing Zhang Xiuhua beaming with joy, Baihuan was also surprised. She said, Oh, Junior Brother Ren, what are you two for? How did you know he was coming? Him? Zhang Xiuhua smiled bitterly and said, Who is this him? How did you know it was the person I wanted to see the most? Seeing this, Baihuan shook her head and said, Of course I know who this him is, but whether he is the person you want to see the most, I don't know. This is just Headmaster Chen's order. Oh, Zhang Xiuhua nodded and asked, Then who is him? Baihuan waved her hand and said, Junior Brother Ren, It's already late. I heard from Headmaster Chen that he will come to Tianmu Peak before the banquet. Why don't we go down the mountain first? When the time comes, you will know. Since Headmaster Chen said he is the person you want to see the most, then he must be the person you want to see the most. If I tell you now, won't it be less of a surprise? This? Zhang Xiaohua was a little helpless and hesitant. Yang Yao? The hall master of Pill Expansion Hall? Peacock? Chen Chun? Oh, maybe he was strong? That was not very likely. Why would she want to see them? In the whole fragrance cult, only Zhang Xiaohu on Shixing Peak was the person she wanted to see the most. She did not want to see the others even if she wanted to. Well, just one more look. If it was yesterday, Zhang Xiaohua would have gone down the mountain with Bai Huan without hesitation. But now in the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace, in the alchemy room, she had just put in the herbs. Although it was just quenching liquid, even if she did not pay attention to it, she would still have some confidence. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and said, Senior brother, buy this. Can we not go down the mountain? Eh? Not going down the mountain? Bai Huan was also obviously stunned, as if she did not expect Zhang Xiaohua to answer like this. She asked, Junior brother Ren, why don't you go down the mountain? What's the point of staying on this lonely mountain top? Moreover, Headmaster Chen specially asked me to call you because he is the person you want to see the most. Alas, yes, there was really no good reason why she did not go down the mountain. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua nodded slightly and said, In that case, Senior brother Bai, please wait for a while. I will go to the cave to tidy up. Ah? Tidy up? Bai Huan opened his mouth wide, but immediately smiled and said, Junior brother Ren, don't think wrongly. Maybe Headmaster Chen guessed wrong. Oh no, maybe Junior brother Ren thought wrong. The person at the foot of the mountain may not be the person you think. This? What is this all about? Zhang Xiaohua laughed at herself and turned back to the cave. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua had turned back, Bai Huan did not follow. Previously, Chen Fengxiao had specially instructed that it was best not to disturb Zhang Xiaohua's daily life. Even this cave should not be entered if possible. Bai Huan was very good at this and was able to firmly carry out the headmaster's instructions. He was not willing to take even half a step closer to this cave. Zhang Xiaohua returned to the cave and used her divine senses to look at Bai Huan. Seeing that he did not move, she felt relieved and escaped into the pill room. She carefully checked the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace again and injected some incantations into the furnace. Only then was she slightly relieved and escaped from the pill room. Then, she pretended to tidy up her clothes and quickly walked out of the cave. Outside the cave, Bai Huan originally wanted to see a brightly dressed Zhang Xiaohua and make a joke of him. But when he saw that Zhang Xiaohua's clothes were still the same, which was far from what he had imagined, he could not help but feel secretly disappointed. However, he did not dare to ask more and led Zhang Xiaohua down the mountain path to the top of Tianmu Peak. Although Bai Huan did not know lightness skill and Zhang Xiaohua only followed him down on foot, they were going down the mountain after all and their speed was extremely fast. In less than half an hour, they had already reached the mountainside. At this moment, the sun had completely set behind the mountain, leaving only a faint light in the western sky. It was the time when darkness was coming. However, as soon as Zhang Xiaohua and Bai Huan turned a corner of the mountain, the sharp-eyed Zhang Xiaohua saw from afar that there was a bright red area in front of the courtyard that was gradually fading into the darkness on the mountainside. Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. If his divine senses were not suppressed now, he would have released them to observe carefully. But now, he could only speed up his pace. When he got closer, he saw clearly that there were several red cloths with huge black words on them. The words were, Warmly welcome the elite disciples of Wuming Hall to come and give guidance. Warmly welcome the pride of Tuoping Hall to return to his mother's arms. Warmly welcome the pride of Tuoping Hall to return to his mother's arms. You will always be the hero in our hearts. We hope you can come back often. In front of the courtyard, there were dozens of young medical apprentices, all holding red garlands in their hands and standing in a neat line. It was spring all year round in the Xiangxiang cult, but now it was dusk. Tianmu Peak was also very high, and the peak of the mountainside had been bitterly cold. Those young medical apprentices were dressed very brightly, but they were also very thin. When the mountain wind blew, it was also very cold, and the mouth of the medical apprentices trembled slightly. Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. He turned his head and asked, This posture seems to be welcoming him. Why? Is it Hall Master? However, before Bai Huan answered, Zhang Xiaohua's mind flashed. He patted his forehead with his hand and said with a smile, I was wondering who it was. It turned out to be him. Bai Huan also clapped her hands and said, Junior brother Rin is really smart. You guessed it at once. Zhang Xiaohua shook his head and said, If I saw the pride of Wuming Hall, outer core disciples, and Tuoping Hall, I would be stupid if I still couldn't think of him. However, speaking of this, the corners of his mouth twitched a few times. Well, he naturally had a plan in mind who this person was. But what was this person called? To be honest, this name had appeared in Zhang Xiaohua's ears several times. Unfortunately, he didn't take note of it seriously. Now that he thought about it, he had no impression of it at all. So Zhang Xiaohua had to turn around and point it to the young medical apprentices who were shivering in the mountain wind, and said, Although this person is the pride of our Tuoping Hall and is the only one who passed the examination and became an outer core disciple in these years, it seems that we don't need such an amazing formation. Look at these medical apprentices, they are all about 10 years old. The mountain wind here is very strong, and it's not good for them to catch cold. Bai Huan looked at those medical apprentices and said awkwardly, These medical apprentices are all admirers of him. They spontaneously organized it, and they are all willing to do it. Although this sentence was said with a stammer, the words, spontaneously and willingly, were very clear. With a hum, Zhang Xiaohua snorted from his nose. Looking at the uniform garlands, clothes, and neat formation in the hands of the medical apprentices, if they spontaneously organized it, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't figure it out even if he thought with his heel. While talking, they didn't stop and soon came to the front of the medical apprentices. Looking at the young faces of the medical apprentices and some snot coming out of their noses, Zhang Xiaohua felt a little distressed for no reason. He reached out to touch the face of a medical apprentice next to him, which was really cold. Zhang Xiaohua was about to speak when she heard a commotion from inside the door. A group of people, who were also very well dressed, walked out of the door. Zhang Xiaohua looked up. Wasn't it Headmaster Chenfeng Xiao and Wu Daline of Wuzhou Ruins in the lead? Yes, behind them were the 10 great Vajras and the 6 great Arhats, who looked very refined. Once Chenfeng Xiao walked out of the courtyard, he saw Zhang Xiaohua. However, when he saw Zhang Xiaohua's clothes, he frowned slightly and walked over quickly. He said, Oh, Brother Ren, why are you still wearing this? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Headmaster Chen, you are good at beating around the bush. You also didn't let Senior Brother Bai say who he was, so how would I know to change clothes? Moreover, I am poor, so how would I have new clothes to welcome distinguished guests? Chenfeng Xiao slapped his forehead. Yes, it's my fault. All right, Bai Huan, lead Junior Brother Ren to the inner courtyard and see if there are any suitable clothes for him to change into. Before Chenfeng Xiao could finish his sentence, someone shouted, Look, the pride of Pill Expanding Hall is back. When Chenfeng Xiao heard this, he hurriedly turned around. He couldn't be bothered to say anything to Zhang Xiaohua. He waved his hand and said, Little ones, fire the firecrackers and play music to welcome our idol. In an instant, a few groups of medicine boys with musical instruments rushed out from the door and started to play music. The previous medicine boy also held a garland and raised it above his head, waving it while shouting, Welcome, welcome, a warm welcome. At this moment, the 2 people in the distance were already close. Zhang Xiaohua didn't need to look back. When her divine sense swept past them, she had an expression of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. -3. Chapter 584. There were two people coming from afar. The one leading the way was Yang Yao, the one who led Zhang Xiaohua into the fragrance cult. The one walking behind Yang Yao was the legendary genius from the Rejuvenation Valley. Well, the little medicine boy of the Rejuvenation Valley was now an outer disciple of the Wuming Hall of the fragrance cult. As for his name, Zhang Xiaohua could not remember it clearly. But the face in her divine sense, Zhang Xiaohua had seen it before. Wasn't he the patrolling disciple who cheated Zhang Xiaohua of the dragon scale fruit on the first day of Zhang Xiaohua's arrival in the fragrance cult? For a moment, Zhang Xiaohua felt a chill in her heart. What kind of quality was this? The pride of the pill-expanding hall? How could he snatch the herb from a medicine boy? Not to mention other things, just this point alone made Zhang Xiaohua look down on him. Until now, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood. No wonder she felt strange at that time. The dragon scale fruit was rare. How could a patrolling disciple of the Wuming Hall know about it? If it was him, naturally, it would not be strange. Not to mention his character, this medicine boy of the pill-expanding hall still had the basic professional quality. When Bai Huan heard Chen Fengxiao ask him to take Zhang Xiaohua to the inner hall to find clothes, he was unhappy at first. Although he didn't say anything, he didn't move at all. He just stood there and stretched his neck, his eyes full of stars, and said in a low voice, "Oh, this senior brother Lu is really a master of martial arts. You see, I haven't seen him for several years, but he still looks the same as before. Oh no, look at his eyes like lightning, and his steps like a tiger or a dragon. He really has the demeanor of a master. Even Headmaster Chen can't compare to him. Even Master Chen Fengxiao." When Zhang Xiaohua heard the words, "Senior brother Lu," she immediately thought of the Lu Lihong mentioned by Yang Yao. Then she covered her mouth and laughed. Although Lu Lihong and Yang Yao were close, they were still 10 feet away. Moreover, it was dusk. It was the most difficult to see people clearly. Zhang Xiaohua's ears and eyes were sharp, but she could only see roughly. How could Bai Huan see clearly? So Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "So senior brother Bai admires senior brother Lu so much?" Bai Huan ignored him and only looked from afar and said, "It's not just me. Senior brother Lu is simply the idol of all the disciples of Tianmu Peak. As long as senior brother Lu is mentioned, even Headmaster Chen is full of praise. Oh, by the way, don't be fooled by Headmaster Chen's extreme dislike of the disciples of Rejuvenation Valley. Senior brother Lu is definitely an exception. Junior brother Ren, when you see senior brother Lu later, you have to get close to him. He is the pride of your Rejuvenation Valley, a genius of hundreds of years." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she secretly curled her lips and thought, "Senior brother Lu's lightness skill is only slightly better than Great King Kong Zhou Shuming. How can he be called a master? Not to mention a genius. He even snatched my dragon scale fruit, and he still wants me to get close to him?" However, he immediately had a good impression of Chen Fengxiao. Perhaps Chen Fengxiao took what he said about becoming an outer disciple seriously. When he saw Lu Lihong coming over, Chen Fengxiao hurriedly called him over. Presumably, Chen Fengxiao wanted Lu Lihong to ask more questions about this disciple of the Pill-Sprouting Hall who had successfully broken through the Pill-Sprouting Hall in the past, so that Lu Lihong would have more confidence. But did she want to be an outer disciple? Did she want to patrol the mountain for the fragrance cult? Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said to Bai Huan, who was immersed in admiration of his idol, "Senior brother Bai, you go ahead. I will find the inner hall myself." When Bai Huan heard this, he was overjoyed and said, Good, good. This is what you said. Then I will go and welcome senior brother Lu first. You quickly change into new clothes and come over to show your nose." After that, he walked away without asking Zhang Xiaohua if she knew where the inner hall was, or pointing the direction to the inner hall for Zhang Xiaohua. Seeing Bai Huan leave in a hurry, Zhang Xiaohua touched his nose and turned to enter the courtyard. Anyway, he didn't intend to change his clothes. Why would he look for the inner hall? At this time, the courtyard was empty. There was no one, but the courtyard was different from usual. Although it was empty, It didn't mean that there was nothing. The courtyard, which was usually empty, had been filled with rows and rows of small stools, which were very neat. Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. Looking up again, at the end of the courtyard, in the hall, there was a slightly high platform. There were several tables and several chairs on the high platform. The high platform was brightly lit, which was reflected on the long red cloth above. On the cloth, there was a row of handsome characters, which was former core of the Pill Expanding Hall, today elite of the Wuming Hall, Lu Lihong's report on his past excellent deeds. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua touched his nose again. Alas, he had touched his nose countless times in a short while. He thought to himself, could it be that you really can't judge a book by its cover? Zhang Xiaohua unconsciously had a trace of expectation in his heart. Zhang Xiaohua looked left and right. His body didn't seem to be moving at all. Instead, he floated up like a breeze and flew straight to a dark corner. It was the new Imperial Wind technique. Unfortunately, he had only flown one zhang and was less than 3 feet above the ground when his body staggered. He had already lost the vigor of the Imperial Wind technique and fell down like a rock. Cough, cough. Zhang Xiaohua looked around. Fortunately, there was no one around. He didn't embarrass himself. He cast a spell and escaped to a corner. Then, he jumped onto the wall and looked at the lively scene outside. Not far away, Yan Yao and Lu Lihong had already walked together with Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu's group. Chen Fengxiao raised his hands with an enthusiastic look. When they got closer, he immediately cupped his hands together and said, Tianmu Peak's Pill Opening Hall's Grass Division disciple Chen Fengxiao welcomes the famous Wuming Hall's outstanding outer disciple Lu Lihong, junior brother Lu Lihong. Yan Yao was walking in front of Lu Lihong and was about to return the greeting. However, after hearing Chen Fengxiao's words, he immediately moved to the side and let Lu Lihong pass. Lu Lihong, on the other hand, acted like an expert. He took a step forward and cupped his hands together. He said humbly, Senior brother Chen, you're too kind. Even though we're not from the same place, weren't we all disciples of the Pill Opening Hall back then? What outer disciples? What outstanding disciples? It's just a fleeting cloud. Only our brotherhood is real. Chen Fengxiao gave him a thumbs up and said, Junior brother Lu is indeed extraordinary. Even at this point, you still haven't forgotten your past. I'm truly impressed. Then, Chen Fengxiao took a step to the side and bowed towards Yang Yao. Martial Uncle Yang, you've worked hard to bring junior brother Lu here. You've added quite a bit of glory to our Tianmu Peak. At the same time, Wu Zhouxiu also walked in front of Lu Lihong with a spring breeze smile. He cupped his hands together and greeted Lu Lihong. Yan Yao, on the other hand, was still smiling. He said to Chen Fengxiao, Sai, I have a hard life. Back then, I brought you back to the fragrant religion. In the blink of an eye, dozens of years have passed. Look at your achievements today, then look at me. I'm ashamed. Chen Feng smiled warmly as he patted Yan Yao's shoulder and said, Martial Uncle Yang is a guiding sign for the fragrant religion. I don't know how many disciples have joined the fragrant religion under your guidance. This contribution of yours is something I admire greatly, but no matter how hard I try, I will never be able to learn from you. Then, he took Yang Yao's hand and said affectionately, I heard that the last time Martial Uncle left the valley was your last time. In the future, you can enjoy your life in the fragrant religion. I wonder what arrangements Martial Uncle has. Our Tianmu Peak lacks a person of virtue and prestige like Martial Uncle. If Martial Uncle is willing, why don't you come to my Tianmu Peak? I'll immediately let Martial Uncle take over my position. Yang Yao waved his hand. No, you and Martial Nephew Lu are both heroes. How can I compare to you? My old bones should just stay in the White Mountain Peak and bask in the sun. Sai, even if I wanted to come to Tianmu Peak, would the Hall Master be willing to replace you? Chen Fengxiao smiled like a flower and shook Yang Yao's hand. You are the Hall Master's treasure. How could he be willing to put you so far away? You must be in a more important place in the hall. Yang Yao chuckled and continued to say some irrelevant things. On the side, Wu Zhouxiu, who had finished exchanging greetings, also walked over and continued to exchange greetings with Yan Yao. The other 16 men surrounded Lu Lihong like stars surrounding the moon, asking all sorts of questions at once. Only not far behind them, a group of young medicine apprentices were working hard to beat the gongs and drums, swaying the garland, their voices somewhat hoarse. "Welcome, welcome, warm welcome!" The sound reverberated through the mountainside of Tianmu Peak. After a while, the two groups of people finished exchanging greetings. Some of the pill-expanding hall disciples who had been admiring them for a long time also seemed to be eager to try. Lu Lihong smiled and said to Chen Fengxiao, "The pill-expanding hall is still the best. This is my home. Every time I come back, I feel the warmth of family. However, the brothers are really too enthusiastic. I'm afraid." Chen Fengxiao obviously knew what he meant. He turned around and raised his hand. "Fellow junior brothers, don't be anxious. It's windy and cold here. Let junior brother Lu enter the courtyard first. In a while, it will be junior brother Lu's first report. Let's go with him and reminisce about the years when he fought in the pill-expanding hall. After this, let's have a good exchange with junior brother Lu and learn from him. In the future, junior brother Lu will be our guiding light." Chen Fengxiao said a lot. Only then did the disciples quiet down and make a path. Lu Lihong had a smile on his face as he walked in front of the crowd, waving his hand as he walked. Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu followed behind him, clapping with a smile on their faces. Yan Yao walked behind Chen Fengxiao and the others, accompanied by Zhou Shuming and the others. The disciples on both sides of the aisle cheered and stretched out their hands, wanting to get closer to the former elite of the pill repository hall. The medicine boys behind the disciples were still tirelessly waving their garlands and drums, their little faces full of excitement. Their eyes were peeking through the gaps between the disciples, hoping to see something. Unfortunately, they could not see anything. All they could see was a group of messy backs. -3. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.